Logan Hayes collapsed in the elevator, heart racing, vision blurring, while his 6-year-old daughter screamed for help, and the billionaire boss who'd been slowly killing him finally understood what her ambition had cost. The single father who'd saved her empire a dozen times without recognition was dying right in front of her, and Victoria Sinclair realized she'd become the villain in someone else's story. Everything that came after, the custody battle, the courtroom war, the impossible choice between career and conscience, started in those 30 seconds when a good man's body finally gave up fighting. If you're watching, hit that like button right now and drop a comment with your city name so I can see how far this story travels. Let's get into it. The numbers wouldn't stop moving. Logan Hayes stared at the triple monitor setup on his desk, watching real-time market data cascade across the screens like a digital avalanche he couldn't outrun. His eyes burned. The coffee next to his keyboard had gone cold 3 hours ago, a film forming across the surface that he didn't have the energy to care about. 3:47 a.m. He'd been at the office since 6:30 the previous morning, 21 hours straight. Again, his phone buzzed. Another email from Victoria Sinclair's executive assistant with the subject line, "Merger projections, need by 4 a.m." Logan's fingers moved across the keyboard automatically, muscle memory taking over where conscious thought had started failing around midnight. The Sinclair Meridian merger was the biggest deal in Manhattan financial news this quarter. $8.2 billion, 300 jobs on the line, and Victoria's entire reputation riding on whether the numbers justified the acquisition. She didn't accept failure. She didn't accept excuses. She barely accepted sleep. "Daddy? The small voice cut through Logan's concentration like a knife. He spun his chair around to find Ava sitting on the break room couch 15 feet away, her pink backpack serving as a pillow, her favorite stuffed rabbit clutched against her chest. His daughter looked so small in the empty office. 6 years old and already learning what it meant to have a parent who couldn't be present even when they were in the same room. "Hey, sweetheart." Logan forced brightness into his voice that his body didn't feel. "Did you sleep okay?" "Kind of." Ava rubbed her eyes. "The lights are really bright." Guilt hit him harder than any exhaustion could. He'd brought her to the office again because the babysitter had canceled, the 3rd time this month, and he couldn't afford to miss another deadline. Not with Victoria already questioning his commitment after he'd left early last week for Ava's parent-teacher conference, 15 minutes early. He'd left 15 minutes before his official shift ended, and Victoria had sent him an email at 11 p.m. that night asking if he was still invested in his role here. "I'm almost done," Logan lied. The merger analysis was maybe 60% complete. He had spreadsheets that didn't balance, projections that needed 3 more rounds of verification, and a risk assessment that Victoria would tear apart if he didn't find every possible weakness before she did. "Just a little bit longer." Ava nodded without complaint. She was getting too good at this, too accepting of nights sleeping on office furniture, too familiar with the taste of vending machine dinners, too quiet about missing her own bed. Too much like him. Surviving instead of living. Logan turned back to his monitors and dove into the financial models, letting the numbers consume him because that was easier than thinking about what this job was doing to his daughter. The Sinclair Meridian merger had structural problems. Victoria refused to acknowledge overlapping assets that would create redundancy, incompatible corporate cultures, debt obligations that the projections conveniently minimized. He'd flagged these issues in 3 separate reports. Victoria had ignored all of them. She wanted the merger because Marcus Meridian had said no to her 5 years ago when she'd tried to buy his company the first time. This wasn't about smart business anymore. This was about Victoria Sinclair proving she could take whatever she wanted. Logan's phone buzzed again. Text message from Victoria's assistant. "Ms. Sinclair will be in the office at 5 a.m. to review your analysis. Please have the full presentation ready." It was 4:03 a.m. He had 57 minutes. His heart rate kicked up. That uncomfortable flutter in his chest that had been happening more often lately. Probably stress. Probably nothing. Probably just his body's way of saying he was 32 years old and running on 4 hours of sleep per night for the past 6 weeks. Logan pulled up the presentation template and started building slides. Revenue projections, cost synergies, market positioning, strategic advantages. All the corporate language that made a questionable acquisition sound like inevitable genius. His vision blurred. He blinked hard, trying to clear it, but the text on the screen kept doubling. The fluorescent lights overhead suddenly felt too bright, too sharp, drilling into his skull. Daddy, are you okay? Yeah, baby, I'm fine. But he wasn't fine. His left arm felt weird. Not painful exactly, just heavy and distant, like it belonged to someone else. The flutter in his chest had become a racing thump that made him acutely aware of his own heartbeat. Focus, he had to focus. Logan forced himself to finish the presentation. Every slide felt like pushing through concrete, but he couldn't stop, couldn't fail. Victoria had made it abundantly clear during last month's performance review that senior analysts were easily replaceable, and that she expected elite-level dedication from anyone who wanted to keep their position. Translation: work yourself into the ground or clean out your desk. At 4:51 a.m., Logan sent the completed analysis to Victoria's email. The presentation wasn't perfect. There were sections he would have refined if he'd had more time, but it was done. That had to count for something. He sagged back in his chair, every muscle in his body screaming for rest. 9 minutes until Victoria arrived. Just enough time to close his eyes for a "Mr. Hayes, what kiss?" Logan jerked awake. Victoria Sinclair stood in his cubicle entrance, impossibly put together, in a charcoal suit despite the ungodly hour. Her dark hair was pulled back in that severe style she favored, her makeup flawless, her expression radiating the kind of cold assessment that made grown executives stumble over their words. At 30 years old, she was the youngest female billionaire in Manhattan. Self-made, people said. Though Logan knew her late father had left her a considerable fortune and the company infrastructure to build on. Still, what she'd accomplished in 6 years was remarkable, if you didn't count the human cost. "Ms. Sinclair." Logan stood too quickly. The room tilted. He gripped the desk edge to steady himself. "I sent the presentation 9 minutes ago. The full analysis is—" "I read it." Victoria's voice was clipped, efficient. "The projections are acceptable. The risk assessment is thorough." She paused, and Logan felt the criticism coming before she spoke it. "But you buried the lead. The strategic positioning section should be front-loaded, not relegated to slide 18. The board needs to see our competitive advantage immediately." I can restructure it. I already did. I need you in the conference room at 7 for the dry run. Don't be late." It was 4:53 a.m. The dry run was in 2 hours and 7 minutes. Logan had been at the office for nearly 22 hours straight, and Victoria expected him to present to the board in a state of cognitive coherence. "I'll be there," he said, because what else could he say? Victoria's gaze flicked past him to where Ava was sitting on the couch, now awake and watching them with wide, uncertain eyes. Something crossed Victoria's face, not quite disapproval, but not understanding either, like she was looking at a problem she didn't have the framework to solve. "Your daughter," Victoria said. "She's here often. Babysitter canceled. It won't happen again. See that it doesn't." Victoria turned to leave, then paused. "And Hayes, the board presentation is at 9. Make sure you're presentable. You look terrible." She left without waiting for a response. Logan stood there in the empty office, exhaustion pressing down on him like physical weight, while his 6-year-old daughter watched him from a break room couch, and his boss critiqued his appearance after working him for 22 hours straight. This was his life now. Had been for 2 years since Rebecca died. Before the car accident, Logan's world had made sense. He'd had a wife who loved him, a daughter who laughed easily, a job that ended at 6 p.m. most days. They'd had dinner together every night. They'd read bedtime stories. They'd been a family that functioned. Then a drunk driver ran a red light on a Thursday evening, and everything good in Logan's life shattered in the time it took for metal to crumple and glass to break, and his wife's heart to stop beating in a hospital room while he held her hand and begged her not to leave. She left anyway. And Logan had spent the last 2 years trying to be enough parent for a grieving daughter while working for a woman who measured human value in productivity metrics. He walked over to Ava and crouched down beside the couch. "Hey, kiddo, I need to work a little bit longer. Can you hang in there for me?" Ava nodded, but her eyes were too understanding. Ava thought, 6 years old and already carrying the weight of making things easier for her father. "I'm sorry," Logan whispered, brushing hair back from her forehead. "I'm so sorry, Ava." "It's okay, Daddy." She smiled, that brave little smile that broke his heart every single time. "I know you're trying really hard." Logan pulled her into a hug and held on tight, trying to remember when he'd last had the energy to be a good father instead of just a surviving one. Trying to remember what Rebecca would think of the man he'd become. She'd hate this. Hate what Victoria Sinclair's company had turned him into. Hate that their daughter was growing up in office break rooms and learning that love meant sacrifice without boundaries. But Rebecca wasn't here. And Logan didn't have the luxury of principles when there were bills to pay and a child to raise and no family to fall back on. So he went back to his desk and kept working, because that's what you did when you were out of choices. The board presentation at 9 a.m. was brutal. Victoria stood at the head of the conference table like a general commanding troops, walking the board through the merger analysis with the kind of confidence that made risky ventures sound inevitable. Logan sat 3 seats down, providing supporting data when called upon, watching the executives nod along as Victoria systematically dismantled every objection. She was brilliant. Logan had to give her that. Whatever moral reservations he had about her management style, Victoria Sinclair was genuinely exceptional at making people believe in her vision. The Meridian acquisition positions us for market dominance in the next fiscal quarter, Victoria concluded. Hayes' analysis confirms a 23% revenue increase within 18 months. The risk factors are manageable. The strategic advantages are undeniable. Board Chairman Richard Walters leaned forward, skepticism evident in his expression. What about the redundancy concerns? Meridian has overlapping divisions in 3 key areas. Victoria didn't miss a beat. We'll streamline through strategic restructuring. Hayes? Logan pulled up the workforce analysis on the conference room screen. The overlapping divisions represent approximately 200 positions. We've identified efficiency gains through consolidation that will offset the redundancy costs within the first year. He didn't say what that actually meant. 200 people would lose their jobs, so Victoria could prove she could absorb Marcus Meridian's company. Walters studied the numbers. And Meridian himself? He's agreed to the terms? Bo? Marcus is finalizing his acceptance this week, Victoria said smoothly. He understands this merger benefits both organizations. That was corporate speak for she'd backed him into a corner until selling was less painful than fighting. The board voted to approve the merger. Unanimous decision. Victoria had won again. Victoria. After the meeting ended, Logan returned to his desk to find 17 new emails waiting for him. Implementation timelines, integration protocols, due diligence reports. The merger might be approved, but the real work was just beginning. His phone buzzed. Text from Ava's school. Mr. Hayes, Ava fell asleep during reading time today. Is everything all right at home? Everything was not all right. But Logan didn't know how to explain that to a first-grade teacher who probably thought he was neglecting his daughter's bedtime routine, not bringing her to corporate offices at midnight because he literally had no other options. He texted back, "She's fine. Rough night. Won't happen again." Another lie. It would happen again. It kept happening over and over because Logan was trapped in a cycle he couldn't break, working impossible hours to keep a job that demanded those impossible hours to prove he deserved to keep working. Hayes. Logan looked up to find Victoria standing at his cubicle again. She never seemed to get tired, never seemed to need the basic human requirements of rest or food or time away from work. The Meridian integration timeline is aggressive, Victoria said. I need you to coordinate with their financial team starting next week. That means site visits to their Connecticut office, probably 3 days a week for the next month. 3 days a week in Connecticut, with Ava and no babysitter and no family support system and no way to make this impossible situation work. I'll make it happen, Logan said automatically. Victoria studied him with that analytical gaze she used on financial reports. You look worse than you did this morning. When's the last time you slept? I'm fine. That's not what I asked. Logan met her eyes. Does it matter? The work gets done either way. Something flickered across Victoria's face, surprise maybe that he'd pushed back even slightly. But she didn't pursue it. Just get me the integration framework by Friday. And Hayes, figure out your childcare situation. I need you focused. She left. Logan stared at his computer screen and tried to remember what focused felt like. The next 3 weeks blurred together in a haze of spreadsheets and conference calls and Connecticut site visits that required Logan to bring Ava along because the babysitter kept canceling, and there was literally no one else. Marcus Meridian's CFO took one look at the 6-year-old sitting in the corner of the conference room during their integration meeting and raised an eyebrow. "Bring your daughter to work day?" "Well, something like that," Logan said tightly. The meetings were tense. Meridian's team clearly resented being absorbed into Sinclair Enterprises, and they took every opportunity to make the integration process difficult. Logan spent hours mediating conflicts, restructuring timelines, and translating Victoria's aggressive demands into language that wouldn't cause Meridian's executives to sabotage the entire merger out of spite. He was good at it: the diplomacy, the problem-solving, the quiet work of preventing disasters before they happened. Logan had saved the Sinclair-Meridian merger at least 5 times in the past month alone, catching errors in asset valuations that would have cost millions, identifying legal complications in the intellectual property transfer, restructuring debt obligations to avoid triggering penalty clauses that Victoria's lawyers had somehow missed. He never got credit for any of it. The wins went to Victoria. The exhaustion belonged to Logan. By the 4th week, he'd stopped sleeping more than 3 hours a night. His body ran on caffeine and adrenaline and the desperate momentum of a man who couldn't afford to stop moving because stopping meant confronting how badly everything was falling apart. Ava stopped asking when they could go home. She just brought extra books to the office and learned to be invisible. That scared Logan more than anything. His daughter was 6 years old and already understanding how to make herself small enough to not be a burden. On a Friday night, or technically Saturday morning at 1:47 a.m., Logan finally finished the integration framework Victoria had demanded 3 days earlier. His eyes burned. His hands shook from too much coffee. The chest flutter had become a constant companion, uncomfortable but ignorable. He saved the document, sent it to Victoria's email, and slumped back in his chair. "Daddy?" Ava stood beside his desk, her stuffed rabbit dragging on the floor. She looked so tired. They both did. "I'm done, sweetheart," Logan said. "Let's go home." He stood up too fast. The room tilted violently. Logan grabbed the desk edge, but his legs weren't working right, and the fluorescent lights overhead suddenly blazed too bright, and the flutter in his chest became a racing, stuttering wrongness that made him gasp. "Daddy?" Ava's voice spiked with fear. "Daddy, what's wrong?" "I'm okay. Just—" The words caught in his throat. His left arm went numb. The racing in his chest became a squeezing pressure that radiated up into his jaw. This wasn't stress. This was something worse. Logan tried to take a step toward the elevator and his legs gave out. He caught himself on the cubicle wall, breathing hard, trying to fight through the panic and the pain and the sudden terrifying understanding that his body was shutting down. He couldn't finish the sentence, couldn't breathe right, couldn't think past the pressure in his chest. "Help!" Ava screamed. "Somebody help!" Logan stumbled toward the elevator because if he could just get to his car, if he could just make it home, everything would be fine. He wasn't dying. He couldn't be dying. Ava needed him. He couldn't leave her alone. The elevator doors opened. Logan lurched inside, his vision tunneling, his heart hammering against his ribs like it was trying to break free. He heard voices behind him, running footsteps, someone shouting his name. Then his legs gave out completely, and Logan collapsed on the elevator floor, Ava's pink backpack still clutched in his hands, his daughter screaming for help. And the last thing he saw before consciousness slipped away was Victoria Sinclair's face staring down at him in shock, finally understanding what her ambition had cost. Logan woke up in a hospital room. The first thing he registered was the steady beep of monitoring equipment. The second was the IV in his arm. The third was the fluorescent lighting that seemed designed specifically to make sick people feel worse. His chest ached. His whole body felt heavy, disconnected, like he was operating a machine he didn't quite know how to control anymore. "Mr. Hayes," a doctor stood at his bedside, young, tired-looking, with the kind of sympathetic expression that meant bad news was coming. "What happened?" Logan's voice came out rough. "You had a cardiac event. Severe exhaustion complicated by extreme stress. Your heart rhythm was dangerously irregular when you arrived." The doctor pulled up a chart. "You're stable now, but Mr. Hayes, you came very close to a full cardiac arrest. At 32 years old, the words didn't make sense. Logan worked hard, yeah, but he wasn't dying. He couldn't be dying. People his age didn't have heart problems unless there was something seriously wrong. How long was I out? About 9 hours. It's 11 a.m. The doctor's expression turned more serious. Mr. Hayes, I need to be very direct with you. Your body is shutting down from chronic stress and sleep deprivation. If you don't make significant lifestyle changes immediately, you're looking at serious long-term cardiac damage, possibly fatal. Fatal. The word hung in the air like a threat. My daughter. Well, Logan said. Where's Ava? She's in the waiting room with... The doctor checked his notes. Victoria Sinclair? She's been here since you were admitted. Victoria was here with Ava. Logan's brain struggled to process that information. His boss, the woman who'd been systematically destroying his health for months, had stayed at the hospital with his daughter. I need to see her. In a minute. First, we need to discuss your treatment plan. Now. Logan's voice came out harder than intended. I need to see my daughter now. The doctor hesitated, then nodded. I'll send her in. 2 minutes later, Ava burst through the door and threw herself at Logan's hospital bed. Daddy, I was so scared. You stopped moving and your eyes closed and I thought, I'm okay, baby. Logan wrapped his arms around her, feeling her small body shake with sobs. I'm okay. I promise. Hey, Mom. But he wasn't okay. The doctor's words kept echoing in his head. Possibly fatal. The door opened again. Victoria Sinclair stepped into the hospital room, and for the first time since Logan had started working for her, she looked genuinely uncertain. Hayes. She stood at the foot of the bed, her usual confidence replaced by something that looked almost like guilt. The doctor said you're going to recover. Yes, yeah. Logan kept his arms around Ava. Thanks for staying with her. Victoria stopped, started again. I didn't know where else to take her. You don't have any emergency contacts listed. Because he didn't have anyone. Rebecca's parents were dead. He didn't. His own parents had died when he was 20. No siblings, no close friends anymore, because he'd been too busy working to maintain relationships. Just him and Ava. That's all that was left of their family. Did you make my daddy sick? The question came from Ava, and it hit the room like a bomb. Logan felt his daughter pull back slightly, her tear-stained face looking up at Victoria with the kind of direct, unflinching honesty that only children could manage. Did you make him work too much? Ava continued. Is that why his heart got broken? Victoria's face went pale. She opened her mouth, closed it again. For maybe the first time in her life, Victoria Sinclair didn't have a prepared answer. Ava, that's not... Logan started, but his daughter interrupted. He works all the time. He never sleeps. He's always tired and sad. And he brings me to the office because he doesn't have anyone to watch me, and you keep giving him more work. Ava's voice was shaking but fierce. So did you make him sick? Did you? The silence that followed was devastating. Victoria looked at Ava, then at Logan, then down at her hands. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. Yes, she said. I think I did. Logan was discharged from the hospital 3 days later with strict orders. Mandatory rest, reduced stress, no returning to work for at least 2 weeks. The cardiologist had been blunt. One more incident like this, and they'd be talking about permanent cardiac damage. Victoria arranged everything. She hired a car service to drive Logan and Ava home. She had groceries delivered to his apartment. She sent an email to the entire senior team explicitly stating that Logan was on medical leave and was not to be contacted for any reason. And then she did something Logan never expected. She showed up at his apartment. It was day 5 of his forced rest. Logan was sitting on the couch, trying to watch TV with Ava while his mind churned with anxiety about missed deadlines and project timelines, and whether his job would still exist when he came back. The doorbell rang. Logan opened it to find Victoria standing in his hallway, wearing jeans and a sweater instead of her usual corporate armor. She looked younger like this, more human. Can I come in? She asked. Logan stepped aside. I'm not cleared to work yet. Doctor's orders. I'm not here about work. Victoria walked into the living room, taking in the modest apartment with the kind of careful attention she usually reserved for financial reports. I wanted to check on you and to apologize. That caught Logan completely off guard. Apologize for what? For nearly killing you. Victoria's voice was flat, matter of fact. For being so focused on the merger that I didn't notice I was destroying the person making it possible. For creating a workplace culture where people are afraid to leave at reasonable hours because they think I'll replace them. You literally told me senior analysts were easily replaceable. Oh, I did. Victoria met his eyes, and I was wrong. Ava appeared in the doorway, watching them with cautious curiosity. Victoria noticed her, and something in her expression softened. Hi, Ava, she said quietly. Hi. Ava didn't move closer. Is my dad going to keep working for you? The question was loaded with more meaning than a 6-year-old should have to carry. Logan started to intercede, but Victoria spoke first. Only if he wants to, she said, and only under better conditions than before. I'm changing how my company operates, starting with making sure no one ever ends up in a hospital because I pushed them too hard. Ava considered this. You promise? I promise. Logan watched this exchange and felt something shift in his understanding of who Victoria Sinclair actually was beneath the billionaire CEO persona. Maybe there was more to her than corporate ruthlessness. Maybe guilt had cracked something open. Or maybe this was just temporary sympathy that would fade once he returned to work and the pressure mounted again. Why do you work so hard? Ava asked suddenly. Don't you get tired? Victoria laughed, a quiet, hollow sound. I get tired. I just don't let myself stop. Why not? Because Victoria paused, clearly struggling with how to explain complicated adult motivations to a first grader. Because I'm trying to prove something to myself and to other people. And I got so focused on proving it that I forgot about the people helping me. That's dumb, Ava said with childhood bluntness. My daddy's really smart. He should help you without getting sick. You're absolutely right. Victoria looked at Logan. Your daughter is smarter than most of my board members. Despite everything, Logan smiled. She gets that from her mom. The moment stretched between them, awkward but genuine. Victoria cleared her throat. I should go. I just wanted to make sure you were okay, and to tell you that when you come back, things are going to be different. Better hours, more support staff, actual work-life balance. I'll believe it when I see it, Logan said, but without hostility. Fair enough. Victoria headed for the door, then paused. Hayes? I read through your file. All of it. And? You've saved my company from at least 8 major financial disasters in the past year. Errors in acquisitions, bad projections, legal complications. You caught all of them. And you never once took credit or asked for recognition. Logan shrugged. That's the job. No, Victoria said quietly. That's way beyond the job. And I never noticed because I was too busy demanding more. She met his eyes. I'm sorry. For all of it. She left before Logan could respond. Ava climbed onto the couch next to him. Is she going to be nicer now? Maybe, Logan said. I don't know, kiddo. But something had shifted. He could feel it. Whether Victoria's guilt would translate into actual lasting change remained to be seen, but for the first time in 2 years, Logan felt like maybe his boss had finally seen him as a human being instead of a productivity metric. It was a start. Check. The 2 weeks of medical leave passed slowly. Logan slept more than he had in months. He took Ava to the park. They had dinner together every night at an actual reasonable hour. He started remembering what it felt like to be a present father instead of an exhausted ghost moving through the motions of parenting. It was nice, it was terrifying, because Logan knew the moment he went back to work, all of this would disappear. On his first day back, he walked into the office expecting to find the same crushing pressure, the same impossible deadlines, the same toxic culture of overwork disguised as dedication. Instead, he found a completely restructured team. Victoria had hired 3 additional senior analysts. She'd implemented mandatory time-off policies. She'd restructured project timelines to be actually realistic instead of aggressively optimistic. And most shocking of all, she'd sent a company-wide memo explicitly stating that working excessive hours was no longer a sign of commitment. It was a sign of poor management. Logan's new supervisor, a calm, competent woman named Patricia Chen, sat down with him his first day back. Victoria's been very clear about your workload. 45 hours per week maximum. No exceptions. If a project requires more than that, we bring in additional support. She's serious about this? Completely. Patricia smiled. Between you and me, I think your collapse scared her more than she's admitting. She's overhauling the entire company culture, starting with the people who nearly died, making her rich. It sounded too good to be true. Logan kept waiting for the other shoe to drop, for Victoria to revert to her old patterns the moment the guilt wore off. But weeks passed and the changes held. The Meridian integration continued, but with reasonable timelines and adequate staffing. Logan went home at 6 p.m. most nights. He had weekends. He had energy to be a father. And Victoria changed. She started showing up at team meetings looking less polished, more human. She asked people about their families. She actually listened when someone said they were overwhelmed instead of just demanding they work harder. One evening, 3 months after his hospital stay, Victoria stopped by Logan's desk before he left for the day. "Hayes, do you have a minute?" Logan closed his laptop. "What's up?" "I wanted to thank you," Victoria said, "for the Meridian integration. It's going smoothly because of your work. Just doing my job." "No." Victoria's voice was firm. "You're doing exceptional work, and I failed to recognize that for a long time, so I'm recognizing it now. You're being promoted to Director of Strategic Analysis. Significant raise, better benefits, and I promise you'll never again have to choose between your career and your daughter." Logan sat there, stunned. "I don't know what to say." "Say you'll stay." Victoria's expression turned uncertain, vulnerable in a way he'd never seen from her before. "I need good people, Hayes, and you're the best person I've got, but I also need you to believe I've actually changed, that I'm not going to turn back into the person who nearly killed you." "Have you changed?" Logan asked directly. Victoria was quiet for a long moment. "I'm trying, every day, because the alternative is becoming the villain in other people's stories, and I realized I don't want that to be my legacy." "Why does my opinion matter so much?" "Because your daughter asked if I made you sick," Victoria said softly. "And she was right, and I can't undo that. But maybe I can make sure it never happens again, to you or to anyone else." Logan studied her face, looking for signs of manipulation or corporate performance. He found only exhaustion and genuine regret. "Okay," he said. "I'll stay." Relief washed over Victoria's expression. "Thank you." She started to leave, then paused. "Hayes, does Ava like science museums? There's a new exhibit at the Museum of Natural History." "I thought maybe." She trailed off, uncertain. "Are you asking to spend time with my daughter?" "Only if that's appropriate. I don't want to overstep. I feel like I owe her an apology too, for stealing her father for so long." Logan thought about Ava's question in the hospital. "Did you make my daddy sick?" His daughter deserved to see that adults could make mistakes and try to fix them, that people could change, that accountability meant something. "Saturday afternoon," Logan said. 2:00. Meet us at the main entrance." Victoria's face lit up with genuine surprise and happiness. "Really? Really? But Victoria," Logan held her gaze, "if you hurt her, if you make promises you don't keep, we're done. Promotion or not. Understood?" Understood. She left, and Logan sat there wondering what the hell he'd just agreed to. Bringing his daughter into any kind of relationship with Victoria Sinclair felt risky. But maybe that's what healing looked like. Messy and uncertain and requiring everyone to be braver than was comfortable. He texted Ava's school to let them know he'd be picking her up early on Saturday. Then he went home to his daughter, arriving at 6:15 p.m. like a normal person with a normal job, and they had dinner together while Ava told him about her day, and Logan actually had the energy to listen. It wasn't perfect. Logan still had moments of crushing anxiety about job security. He still carried guilt about the 2 years he'd spent barely present in his daughter's life. He still missed Rebecca with an ache that never fully went away. But for the first time since the accident, Logan felt like maybe, just maybe, they were going to survive this. Not just survive, actually live. And that was something. Saturday came faster than Logan expected. He stood outside the Museum of Natural History at 1:55 p.m., watching Ava bounce on her toes with nervous excitement. She changed her outfit 3 times that morning, finally settling on her favorite purple dress and the light-up sneakers that made her feel brave. What if she doesn't come? Ava asked for the 3rd time. She'll come, Logan said, though he wasn't entirely sure himself. Victoria had made a lot of promises lately. Whether she'd follow through on something as personal as a Saturday museum trip remained to be seen. At 2:03 p.m., a sleek black car pulled up to the curb. Victoria stepped out wearing jeans, a simple white blouse, and sunglasses that probably cost more than Logan's monthly rent. She looked almost normal, if you ignored the designer handbag and the fact that her casual outfit still screamed money. Sorry I'm late, Victoria said, approaching them. Traffic was worse than I expected. Ava stared up at her with wide eyes. You came. Of course I came. I said I would. Victoria crouched down to Ava's level, which surprised Logan more than anything else. His boss didn't strike him as someone who crouched for anyone. Is it okay if I hang out with you and your dad today? Ava nodded slowly. I guess so, but you have to promise not to talk about boring work stuff. Deal. Victoria smiled, a real smile, not the corporate one Logan was used to seeing. I'm actually terrible at museums. You'll have to show me all the cool things. That seemed to relax Ava. She grabbed Victoria's hand with the unselfconscious ease of childhood and started pulling her toward the entrance. Come on, they have real dinosaur bones inside. Logan followed a few steps behind, watching his daughter interact with the woman who'd nearly destroyed their lives 3 months ago. It felt surreal, wrong in some ways, but also strangely right. Victoria had changed. He could see it in how she listened when Ava talked, how she asked questions about things a 6-year-old cared about, how she didn't check her phone once during the entire visit. She was present in a way Logan had never seen her be present before. They spent 2 hours exploring the exhibits. Ava dragged them to the dinosaur hall first, talking nonstop about velociraptors and triceratops, while Victoria listened with what appeared to be genuine interest. Then they moved to the ocean life section, where Ava pressed her face against the glass of the massive whale model and asked Victoria if she'd ever seen a real whale. Once, Victoria said, when I was about your age, my father took me on a boat trip off the coast of Maine. We saw a humpback breach, jump completely out of the water. I thought it was the most amazing thing I'd ever seen. Did your dad like whales? Ava asked. Something flickered across Victoria's face. He did. He liked a lot of things I didn't appreciate when he was alive. Logan caught the past tense, the hint of regret underneath. He'd never thought much about Victoria's personal history. She'd always seemed like someone who'd sprung into existence fully formed as a corporate machine. But apparently she'd had a father once. Apparently she'd lost him. My mom died, Ava said matter-of-factly. 2 years ago. A car hit her. Victoria went very still. I'm so sorry, Ava. Why? It's okay. I mean, it's not okay. I still miss her a lot. But Daddy says it's okay to be sad about it. Ava looked up at Victoria with the kind of direct honesty that made adults uncomfortable. Did you miss your dad when he died? Every day, Victoria said quietly. Still do. They stood there in front of the whale exhibit. 2 people who'd lost parents and a child who'd lost her mother, connected by grief in a way that transcended the awkwardness of their situation. We should get ice cream, Logan said, breaking the moment before it got too heavy. There's a good place 2 blocks from here. Ava's face lit up immediately. Can we, please? If Victoria doesn't mind. I don't mind, Victoria said. Though I should warn you, I have very strong opinions about ice cream flavors. So do I, Ava said seriously. Mint chocolate chip is the best one, and anyone who disagrees is wrong. Victoria laughed, a genuine, unguarded sound that Logan had never heard from her before. I was going to say cookies and cream, but you make a compelling argument. They left the museum and walked to the ice cream shop, Ava chattering between them about everything and nothing, while Victoria engaged with the kind of patience Logan hadn't known she possessed. Watching them together, something uncomfortable twisted in Logan's chest. He was starting to like Victoria Sinclair. Not as a boss, but as a person. And that complicated everything. The ice cream shop was crowded with weekend families. They found a small table near the window, Ava working on her mint chocolate chip while Victoria and Logan sat across from each other with their respective flavors. "Thank you for today," Victoria said. "I know this was probably weird for you, letting me into your personal life like this." "Weird doesn't begin to cover it," Logan admitted. 3 months ago, I was collapsing in your elevator. Now we're eating ice cream together. I'm trying to make amends. I know. I'm just not sure what that looks like long term." Logan kept his voice low so Ava wouldn't overhear. "You've made a lot of changes at work, good changes, but Ava's different. She's not a corporate project you can fix with restructuring. I'm not trying to fix her," Victoria said. "I'm trying to—" She stopped, searching for words. "I don't have children, obviously. I barely have a personal life. Most days I go home to an empty apartment and work until I fall asleep. I'm 30 years old and the only relationships I have are professional ones. And you thought hanging out with your employee's 6-year-old would help with that? I thought maybe spending time with someone who doesn't expect me to be perfect might remind me what it's like to be human." Victoria looked at Ava, who was completely absorbed in her ice cream. "She asked if I made you sick, and she was right. And I can't fix that by just changing office policies. I have to actually understand what I did wrong. What I've been doing wrong for years." "Why? What?" Logan studied her face, looking for manipulation or performance. He found only exhaustion and something that looked like loneliness. "My father died when I was 24, Victoria continued. "Left me the company and a note that said I had the potential to be better than he ever was. So I spent the last 6 years trying to prove him right, building the empire, making the acquisitions, becoming the youngest female billionaire in Manhattan." She laughed bitterly. "I accomplished everything I set out to do, and somewhere along the way, I turned into someone he would have been ashamed of." "You don't know that." "Yes, I do, because he used to tell me that success without compassion was just cruelty in a suit." Victoria met Logan's eyes. "And that's exactly what I became. Cruel in a very expensive suit." Ava looked up from her ice cream, sensing the serious tone. "Are you sad?" "A little bit," Victoria admitted. "Do you want some of my ice cream? Ice cream makes everything better." Victoria smiled. "It's very kind of you, Ava, but you should keep it. You earned it by being an excellent museum tour guide." Ava beamed at the praise and went back to her dessert. Logan watched the exchange and felt something shift again in his understanding of who Victoria actually was. Not just a reformed workaholic trying to ease her guilt, but a genuinely lonely person who'd built a corporate empire at the expense of everything else, and was only now realizing what that cost. "What was your father like?" Logan asked. Victoria's expression turned distant. "Brilliant. Demanding. He expected excellence from everyone around him, especially me, but he also knew when to turn it off. How to be present for the people who mattered. I inherited his drive, but not his wisdom." She paused. "He would have liked you, I think." He paused. "You remind me of him in some ways. The quiet competence. The way you see problems before they become disasters. Is that why you promoted me?" "I promoted you because you're exceptional at your job, and I almost destroyed you because of it." Victoria's voice was firm. "But yes, I also recognize something in how you work. My father used to say the best people in any organization are the ones who make everyone else better without needing credit for it. That's you, Hayes. Logan didn't know what to say to that. Compliments from Victoria used to feel transactional, strategic praise designed to extract more work. This felt different, genuine. "Can we go to the park?" Ava asked, ice cream finished. "There's one with really good swings nearby." Logan checked his watch. 4:30 p.m. They'd been out for over 2 hours already. "Maybe we should head home, kiddo." "Actually," Victoria said, "I don't have anywhere to be. If Ava wants to go to the park, I'm happy to tag along, unless you'd rather I didn't." Logan looked at his daughter's hopeful face, then at Victoria's carefully neutral expression that couldn't quite hide the fact that she actually wanted to come. Against his better judgment, he found himself nodding. "Okay, but just for an hour, Ma." Ava cheered and grabbed both their hands, pulling them out of the ice cream shop and down the street toward the park. Logan ended up on her left, Victoria on her right, the three of them walking together like something that could almost be mistaken for a family. That thought scared him more than he wanted to admit. The park was busy with weekend crowds, families playing, couples walking dogs, teenagers occupying the basketball courts. Ava made a beeline for the swings, and Logan spent the next 20 minutes pushing her higher and higher while she shrieked with delight. Victoria sat on a nearby bench, watching them with an expression Logan couldn't quite read. When Ava finally tired of the swings and ran off to explore the playground, Victoria gestured for Logan to sit beside her. "You're a good father," she said. "I'm trying. Most days I feel like I'm barely keeping it together. That's what good parenting looks like, I think. Constantly worried you're failing while somehow managing to keep a tiny human alive and relatively happy." Victoria smiled slightly. "My father used to say that about raising me, said it was the hardest thing he ever did and also the best thing." "Do you ever think about having kids?" Logan asked, then immediately regretted the personal question. But Victoria didn't seem bothered. "Sometimes, but I wouldn't know how. I can run a multi-billion-dollar company. I can negotiate mergers and manage boards and analyze markets. But actual human relationships?" She shook her head. "I have no idea what I'm doing." "No one does. We're all just making it up as we go." "You seem to have it figured out, mate." Logan laughed. "Ava ate cereal for dinner 3 nights this week because I was too exhausted to cook. I forgot about her school picture day last month. I still wake up sometimes thinking Rebecca's in the next room. And then I remember she's not. And it hits me all over again that I'm doing this alone." He watched his daughter climb the jungle gym. "I'm nowhere close to having it figured out. But you're still here, still showing up for her every day. That counts for something." Does it? Because from where I'm sitting, I spent 2 years being so focused on survival that I barely noticed I was teaching my daughter to expect nothing from life except disappointment. Victoria was quiet for a moment. "Is that what you think happened?" I know that's what happened. She stopped asking when we'd go to the park, stopped complaining about sleeping on office couches, stopped expecting me to be present. Logan's throat tightened. She learned how to make herself small so she wouldn't be a burden, 6 years old and already believing she doesn't deserve better. That's not your fault. Isn't it? I'm her father. Protecting her from that kind of thinking is literally my job. You were trying to keep her fed and housed while working for someone who demanded the impossible, Victoria said firmly. Which is my fault, not yours. If Ava learned to make herself small, it's because I created an environment where that was the only option. Logan turned to look at her. Why does this matter so much to you? The guilt, the changes, all of this? You could have just given me a raise and moved on. Why are you here at a park on a Saturday afternoon? Victoria was quiet for a long time, watching Ava play. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely audible. Because I don't want to be the villain anymore. Because I'm tired of going home to an empty apartment where no one cares if I exist beyond what I can produce. Because when your daughter asked if I made you sick, I realized I'd spent 6 years building an empire and ended up completely alone in it. She looked at Logan. I'm here because maybe if I can learn to be a decent person to the people around me, I'll figure out how to be a decent person to myself. Thus, the honesty in those words hit Logan harder than expected. He'd spent months seeing Victoria as the enemy, the cold corporate machine grinding him down. But sitting here now, he saw something different, someone who'd sacrificed everything for success and was only now realizing the cost. You know what the worst part is? Victoria continued. I don't even know if I like the person I became. I achieved everything my father wanted for me. The company's thriving. The acquisitions are successful. I'm on the cover of business magazines. But I look in the mirror and I don't recognize who's looking back. So change, Logan said. You've already started. Cute. Have I? Or am I just performing empathy because I got scared when you collapsed? Victoria's voice turned bitter. How do I know the difference between actually changing and just pretending long enough for the guilt to fade? I don't think genuinely awful people ask themselves that question. Victoria smiled sadly. Maybe. Or maybe I'm just good at convincing people, including myself. They sat in silence, watching Ava navigate the playground with fearless confidence. Logan thought about Rebecca and how she'd always believed people were capable of change if they actually wanted to. She'd worked as a social worker before Ava was born, spent years helping people rebuild their lives after hitting bottom. She'd believed in second chances. Logan wanted to believe in them too, but belief required risk, and he'd already lost so much. "My wife would have liked you," Logan said finally. "Not the version of you that almost killed me, but this version, the one trying to figure out how to be better." "What was she like?" "Kind, stubborn. She had this way of seeing the best in people even when they couldn't see it themselves." Logan's chest ached with the familiar grief. "She would have told me to give you a chance, to stop assuming everyone's out to hurt us." "Was she right, usually?" "Annoyingly so." Logan smiled despite the sadness. "I'm not as good at it as she was. The forgiveness thing, the optimism." "You're doing okay," Victoria said. "You're here, aren't you? Even though you have every reason to tell me to get lost." "Yeah, well, my daughter likes you. That counts for a lot." As if summoned by the mention, Ava came running over, breathless and grinning. "Daddy, Miss Victoria, come see what I found." "Batuara-chan." She dragged them to the section of the playground where a group of kids had discovered a family of ducks near a small pond. Ava insisted they all sit on the grass and watch the ducklings follow their mother across the water. Victoria sat cross-legged on the ground in her designer jeans, completely absorbed in watching the ducks, and Logan realized this might be the most relaxed he'd ever seen her. No phone, no laptop, no corporate armor, just a person sitting in a park on a Saturday afternoon, existing without purpose beyond the moment. "The babies are so small," Ava whispered, leaning against Logan's side. "Do you think they're scared?" Maybe a little," Victoria said. "But their mom is teaching them how to swim, how to be brave. Like my daddy teaches me." "Exactly like that." Ava looked up at Victoria with sudden seriousness. "Do you have a mom?" "She died when I was 8, Victoria said. "Cancer. That's really sad." "It was, but I had my father, and he loved me enough for 2 parents. Just like your dad loves you enough for 2 parents." Ava thought about that, then nodded. "Daddy's really good at loving me. He is," Victoria agreed, and when she looked at Logan, there was something in her eyes he couldn't quite identify. Respect, maybe, or recognition, or something more complicated than either. They stayed at the park until the sun started setting and Ava's energy finally ran out. She fell asleep in Logan's arms on the walk back to the museum where Victoria's car was waiting. "Thank you for today," Victoria said quietly, so as not to wake Ava. "This was nice. Really nice." "Yeah, it was." Logan adjusted his sleeping daughter in his arms. "We could do it again sometime, if you want." Victoria's face lit up with genuine happiness. "I'd like that." "But Victoria?" Logan's voice turned serious. "If this is just guilt driving you, I need to know now, before Ava gets attached. Before He stopped himself. "Before anyone gets hurt." "It's not just guilt," Victoria said firmly. "I mean, the guilt is there, but today, this is the first time in years I've felt like a real person instead of a corporate entity. I don't want to lose that. I don't want to go back to being who I was before." Logan studied her face in the fading light, looking for signs of insincerity. He found only tired hope. "Okay," he said, "then we'll figure it out as we go." Victoria smiled, and it transformed her entire face. "Thank you, Hayes." "Logan?" "Outside the office, you can call me Logan." "Logan?" she repeated, like she was testing out how it felt. "Thank you, Logan." She got into her car and drove away, leaving Logan standing on the sidewalk with his sleeping daughter and the uncomfortable realization that he was starting to care about Victoria Sinclair as more than just his boss. That terrified him, because caring meant vulnerability, and vulnerability meant risk, and Logan had already lost one person he loved. He wasn't sure he could survive losing another. But as he carried Ava home through the Manhattan evening, he couldn't help thinking about the way Victoria had looked at the ducks with childlike wonder, or how she'd listened to Ava's stories with genuine interest, or the loneliness he'd heard in her voice when she talked about going home to an empty apartment. Maybe Rebecca had been right. Maybe people could change if they actually wanted to. Maybe second chances were worth the risk. Or maybe Logan was just tired of being alone too. The following Monday, Logan arrived at work to find a formal memo from Victoria's office. All senior staff were required to attend mandatory sessions on work-life balance and mental health resources. The company was implementing flex schedules, remote work options, and a strict cap on overtime hours. It wasn't just talk anymore. Victoria was actually restructuring the entire corporate culture. Patricia Chen stopped by Logan's desk mid-morning with a knowing smile. "I heard you took the boss to meet your daughter this weekend. News travels fast." Victoria's assistant mentioned it. Apparently she came into work this morning in an unusually good mood. Patricia leaned against his cubicle wall. "I've worked here for 8 years, Hayes. I've never seen her like this. Whatever you're doing, keep doing it." "I'm not doing anything. We're trying to be friends, I guess." Patricia raised an eyebrow. "Friends?" "Yes, friends. What else would we be? Nothing. Nothing at all." But the skepticism in her voice was obvious. "Just be careful, okay? Victoria Sinclair doesn't do anything halfway. If she's decided you and your daughter matter to her, she's going to go all in. Make sure you're ready for that." Logan thought about Victoria's words in the park. "I don't want to be the villain anymore." He thought about how she'd looked watching the ducks, how she'd crouched down to talk to Ava at eye level, how her entire face had transformed when she smiled. "I think I'm ready," Logan said. He hoped that was true. Over the next few weeks, a pattern developed. Victoria would text Logan on Friday afternoons asking what he and Ava were doing over the weekend. Sometimes they'd meet up for museum visits or park trips. Sometimes Victoria would join them for dinner at casual restaurants where Ava could color on the paper tablecloths and no one cared about business casual attire. Slowly, carefully, Victoria became part of their lives, and Logan found himself looking forward to her presence. The way she challenged Ava's opinions on ice cream flavors. The way she listened without judgment when Logan talked about his fears of failing as a father. The way she existed in their space without trying to fix everything or control everything or be anything other than herself. She was funny, he discovered. Victoria Sinclair had a dry, sarcastic sense of humor that caught him off guard and made him laugh in ways he hadn't laughed since Rebecca died. She was also deeply insecure beneath the confidence. She second-guessed herself constantly in personal situations, asking Logan if she'd said the wrong thing, or if Ava actually liked her, or if she was overstepping. "You're overthinking it," Logan told her one evening after they'd taken Ava to see an animated movie. They were walking back to his apartment, Ava between them holding both their hands. "Ava likes you. You're doing fine. But what if I'm not? What if I'm just temporarily convincing both of you I'm a decent person, and then I mess it up? Then you mess it up and we deal with it," Logan said. "That's how relationships work. People make mistakes. You apologize and try better next time." "That's simple?" "Not simple at all, but it's the only way forward." Victoria nodded, processing that. "I'm not good at this, at being vulnerable with people. I noticed, but I'm trying, for what it's worth." "It's worth a lot," Logan said, and meant it. They reached his apartment building. Ava was half asleep on her feet, worn out from the movie and the excitement of the day. "Do you want to come up?" Logan asked before he could overthink it. "It's late and you probably have work tomorrow, but I'd like that," Victoria said quickly. So, Logan led her into his modest apartment with its worn furniture and Ava's artwork covering the refrigerator and the life he'd built in the aftermath of tragedy. Victoria looked around with genuine interest, not judgment, taking in the details of how he actually lived. "It's nice," she said. "It feels like a home. It's small, and the heat doesn't work great in winter, and the neighbors are loud. It's still nice. It feels loved." Logan put Ava to bed, reading her the same bedtime story he'd read her every night for 6 months, because it was her favorite and she refused to let him switch to something new. When he came back out to the living room, Victoria was standing by the bookshelf, examining the photos he kept there. Most of them were of Ava at various ages. A few included Rebecca, the 3 of them at the beach, at Ava's 3rd birthday party, on a random Tuesday evening, just being together. "She was beautiful," Victoria said softly, looking at a photo of Rebecca holding newborn Ava in the hospital. "Yeah, she was." Logan stood beside her, looking at his late wife's face. "She would have handled all of this better than me. The single parenting, the grief, everything." I doubt that. You're doing remarkably well. I collapsed in an elevator from exhaustion 3 months ago. And you survived it. You're still here, still fighting for your daughter, still showing up every day even when it's hard. Victoria turned to face him. That's not failing, Logan. That's the opposite of failing. They stood there in his small living room, close enough that Logan could see the vulnerability in Victoria's expression, the hope and fear mixing together in her eyes. Something had shifted between them. When that shift had happened exactly, Logan couldn't say. Maybe it had been gradual, small moments accumulating over weeks until they added up to something significant. Or maybe it had been sudden, a single instant where his brain had stopped categorizing Victoria as boss and started seeing her as just Victoria. Either way, things were different now. Complicated in ways Logan wasn't ready to examine too closely. I should go, Victoria said, but she didn't move. It's late. Yeah, you should. Neither of them moved. Logan? Victoria's voice was uncertain. Can I ask you something? Sure. Do you think people can start over? Really start over, not just pretend the past didn't happen? Logan thought about Rebecca and grief, and the 2 years he'd spent barely functioning. He thought about Victoria's transformation from corporate tyrant to someone who watched ducks in parks with genuine wonder. He thought about second chances and whether anyone actually deserved them. I think people can try, he said finally. I think that's all any of us can do. Try to be better than we were yesterday. Victoria nodded slowly. That's what I'm trying to do. Be better. Not just at work, but at being human. I know, I can see it. And you don't hate me for everything before? Logan considered the question seriously. Did he hate Victoria Sinclair? 3 months ago, the answer would have been yes without hesitation. But now, standing in his living room at 10 p.m. while his daughter slept peacefully in the next room, and Victoria looked at him with raw honesty in her eyes. No, he said. I don't hate you. But you don't trust me either. I'm working on it. That seemed to satisfy her. Victoria grabbed her jacket from where she'd left it on the couch. Thank you for tonight, for the movie, and for letting me be part of your evening. It means more than you probably realize. Same time next weekend? Victoria smiled. I'd like that. She left, and Logan stood in his quiet apartment, thinking about how dramatically his life had changed in just 3 months. From collapsing in an elevator to having dinner with his former tormentor. From surviving each day by force of will to actually looking forward to weekends. It wasn't perfect. He still had moments of crushing anxiety. He still missed Rebecca with an intensity that sometimes took his breath away. He still worried constantly about whether he was enough for Ava. But for the first time in 2 years, Logan felt like maybe, just maybe, he wasn't doing this completely alone anymore. And that possibility, fragile as it was, felt like hope. The call came on a Tuesday morning while Logan was reviewing quarterly projections in his office. Ava's school. The principal's voice was apologetic but firm. Logan needed to come pick up his daughter immediately. There had been an incident. What kind of incident? Logan's heart rate kicked up instantly, that familiar spike of parental anxiety that never fully went away. Ava's fine physically, Principal Martinez said, but a woman showed up claiming to be her aunt and tried to take her from the playground during recess. Our staff stopped her, but Ava's very shaken. We've already called the police. Logan's blood went cold. What woman? I don't have... He stopped. Rebecca had a sister, Caroline. They'd barely spoken since the funeral. She said her name was Caroline Reed. She had identification showing she was Rebecca Hayes' sister. She claimed you'd given her permission to pick Ava up. I didn't. I would never... Logan was already grabbing his jacket, his keys, his phone. I'm on my way. Don't let anyone near my daughter. No one except me. He hung up and practically ran for the elevator, his mind racing with worst-case scenarios. Caroline hadn't contacted him in almost 2 years. The last time they'd spoken was at Rebecca's funeral, when she'd made some passive-aggressive comment about Logan working too much, and maybe that's why Rebecca had been driving alone that night. The accusation had been bullshit. Rebecca had been on her way back from visiting a friend, something she did regularly, something that had nothing to do with Logan's work schedule. But Caroline had needed someone to blame, and Logan had been the easiest target. He'd written off her anger as grief. He'd never imagined she'd actually try to take Ava. Victoria caught him in the lobby. Hayes, what's wrong? You look... Ava's school. Someone tried to take her. I have to go. I'm coming with you. Victoria's voice left no room for argument. She was already following him out the door, her executive presence shifting seamlessly into something more protective. You don't have to... I'm coming, Victoria repeated firmly. We'll take my car. It's faster. Logan didn't have the energy to argue. They climbed into Victoria's town car, her driver navigating Manhattan traffic with the kind of aggressive efficiency that only came from years of experience. Victoria sat beside Logan, her hand resting on his forearm in a gesture of support that felt natural despite how new their friendship was. Tell me what happened, she said quietly. Logan explained about Caroline, about the funeral, about the 2 years of silence that had apparently been building toward this moment. Victoria listened without interrupting, her expression growing darker with each detail. She can't just take your daughter, Victoria said. That's kidnapping. The police will arrest her. I don't know what she was thinking. Caroline never seemed stable after Rebecca died, but I didn't think... Logan's hands were shaking. If something happened to Ava because I wasn't paying attention, nothing happened. Your daughter is safe. Focus on that. They reached the school in record time. Logan bolted from his car before it fully stopped, Victoria right behind him. Principal Martinez met them at the entrance, her professional composure not quite hiding her concern. Mr. Hayes, your daughter is in my office with Officer Chen. She's upset but unharmed. Where's the woman who tried to take her? The police have her in the front office. She's claiming she has legal grounds for custody. Logan felt rage flash through him, hot and immediate. She has no legal grounds. She's not Ava's guardian. I am. That's what we told her. But Mr. Hayes, she's making some serious accusations about your ability to care for Ava. Something about a recent hospitalization? Bums. Victoria stepped forward, her corporate authority radiating from every inch of her posture. I'm Victoria Sinclair, Mr. Hayes' employer. If Miss Reed is referencing his medical leave 3 months ago, I can provide documentation that it was work-related and has been fully resolved. Mr. Hayes is an exemplary employee and, more importantly, an exceptional father. Principal Martinez looked between them, clearly trying to assess the situation. The police will want to speak with both of you. And Mr. Hayes, Ava specifically asked for you. She's scared. That shattered Logan's anger instantly, replacing it with pure need to get to his daughter. Take me to her. Martinez led them through the hallways to her office. Ava sat in an oversized chair, her small body curled up tight, her face tear-stained and terrified. The moment she saw Logan, she launched herself at him. Daddy! There was a lady, and she said she was taking me away, and I told her no, but she grabbed my arm and... Shh, baby. I'm here. You're safe. Logan held her tight, feeling her shake against his chest. Did she hurt you? Okres, my isam giz. She grabbed me really hard. She said... Ava's voice dropped to a whisper. She said you weren't taking good care of me, that I needed to come live with her. Rage flooded Logan again, but he forced it down for Ava's sake. That's not true. You're not going anywhere. You're staying with me. Promise? I promise. Victoria crouched down beside them, her voice gentle. Hey, Ava, remember what we talked about? About how your dad loves you enough for 2 parents? Ava nodded against Logan's shoulder. That's still true, Victoria continued. Nothing that lady said changes that. Your dad is the best father I've ever seen, and I'm not going to let anyone take you away from him. Okay? Okay. Ava reached out and grabbed Victoria's hand, holding tight to both of them like they were anchors in a storm. Officer Chen entered the office, a tired-looking woman in her 40s with kind eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. Mr. Hayes, I need to speak with you about the situation. Logan reluctantly let go of Ava, but she clung to him. It's okay, Victoria said quietly. I'll stay with her while you talk to the officer. Ava looked uncertain, but Victoria sat down in the chair Logan had vacated and opened her arms. To Logan's surprise, his daughter climbed into Victoria's lap without hesitation, burrowing against her the same way she'd burrowed against him. When had that happened? When had Victoria become someone Ava trusted that completely? Logan followed Officer Chen into the hallway where Caroline Reed sat in a chair outside the main office. She looked older than he remembered, her face harder, her eyes carrying this kind of bitterness that came from nursing grudges for years. "Logan," Caroline said, standing up. "Finally, we need to talk about Ava." "We don't need to talk about anything," Logan said coldly. "You tried to kidnap my daughter." "Ma, this was. I'm trying to save her from you." Caroline's voice was sharp. "Rebecca told me how much you worked, how you were never home, and now I find out you collapsed from exhaustion while taking care of a 6-year-old? You're going to get yourself killed and leave her with no one. That's not your decision to make. Someone has to look out for her since you clearly can't." Caroline turned to Officer Chen. "I want custody, full custody. Logan Hayes is mentally unstable and incapable of raising a child." Officer Chen held up a hand. "Ms. Reed, that's not how custody works. You can't just show up at a school and demand a child. If you have legitimate concerns about Mr. Hayes' parenting, you need to file through the proper legal channels." "Fine, then I'll file." Caroline's gaze fixed on Logan. "You almost died, Logan. You collapsed in an elevator. What happens next time? What happens when Ava's alone because you've worked yourself into a heart attack? That's not going to happen. How do you know? You're a single father with no support system and a job that nearly killed you. Rebecca would be horrified." The invocation of his dead wife's name hit Logan like a physical blow. "Don't you dare tell me what Rebecca would think. You barely spoke to her the last 2 years of her life because she was too busy covering for your absence to notice her own sister." Caroline's composure cracked. "You were never there, Logan. She told me. All those late nights, all those business trips, all those times she had to handle everything alone because you were too important at work. That's not what happened, isn't it? And now you're doing the same thing to Ava, working impossible hours, bringing her to the office because you can't find childcare, teaching her that she doesn't matter as much as your career." Logan opened his mouth to defend himself, but the words stuck, because some of what Caroline was saying was true. He had been absent sometimes during his marriage. He had worked long hours, and after Rebecca died, he had brought Ava to the office too many times, had been too exhausted to be fully present, had let his job consume him. "Mr. Hayes has made significant changes to his work situation." Victoria's voice cut through the hallway. She'd emerged from the principal's office, leaving Ava inside with Principal Martinez. "His current schedule allows for appropriate work-life balance. He leaves the office at 6 p.m., he has weekends off, and he's never asked to work overtime." Caroline looked Victoria up and down, clearly recognizing her. "And you are?" "Victoria Sinclair, Logan's employer and friend." "The same Victoria Sinclair who almost killed him with impossible deadlines?" Caroline's smile was cold. "I did my research. You were all over the business news a few months ago for restructuring your corporate culture after one of your employees nearly died. That was Logan, wasn't it?" "Me." Victoria's expression didn't change. "Yes, it was. And I take full responsibility for creating a toxic work environment that endangered his health, which is exactly why I've spent the last 3 months ensuring it never happens again." "How noble. And now you're friends? How convenient for you. Keep your best analyst loyal by pretending to care about his personal life." "I'm not pretending anything," Victoria said, her voice ice cold. "I care about Logan and Ava because they're good people who deserve better than what I gave them. And unlike you, I'm actually present in Ava's life. Where have you been for the past 2 years, Ms. Reed?" Caroline's face flushed red. "I've been grieving my sister. So has Logan, while also raising a child alone and working to support her. What's your excuse for abandoning them both?" Officer Chen stepped between them before the argument could escalate further. "Ladies, this isn't helping. Miss Reed, I need you to come with me to discuss your attempted custody claim. Mr. Hayes, you're free to take your daughter home, but I'd recommend consulting a family law attorney. If Ms. Reed files formally, you'll need legal representation." Logan felt the ground shift under him. This wasn't over. Caroline wasn't going away. "File whatever you want," Logan said to Caroline. "Ava's staying with me. We'll see what a judge thinks about that." Caroline followed Officer Chen down the hallway, throwing one last look over her shoulder. "Rebecca deserved better than you, Logan. And so does Ava. B. The words hit their mark. Logan stood there in the empty hallway, feeling the weight of every mistake he'd ever made. Every time he'd prioritized work over family. Every moment he'd been too exhausted to be the father Ava deserved. Don't listen to her, Victoria said quietly. She's just trying to hurt you. She's not wrong, though. I wasn't there enough. For Rebecca or for Ava. Ye are some. You were doing your best in an impossible situation. Victoria's hand found his arm again. And you're doing better now. That's what matters. Logan wanted to believe her. But Caroline's accusations had dredged up every insecurity, every fear, every moment of guilt he'd been carrying since Rebecca died. What if he really was failing Ava? What if his daughter would be better off with someone who hadn't nearly worked themselves to death? They returned to the principal's office. Ava was drawing on a piece of paper, her earlier panic replaced by the focused concentration of a child using art to process trauma. She looked up when they entered. Is the bad lady gone? She's gone, Logan confirmed, kneeling beside her chair. And she's not coming back. She said I had to go with her. That you weren't a good daddy. That's not true, sweetheart. I know. Ava's voice was small but certain. You're the best daddy, even when you're tired. Logan pulled her into a hug, fighting back the emotion threatening to overwhelm him. His daughter believed in him even when he didn't believe in himself. That had to count for something. They left the school 20 minutes later, after giving statements to the police and promising to follow up with any additional information. Victoria drove them back to Logan's apartment, her presence a steady anchor while his mind spiraled through worst-case scenarios. What if she actually files for custody? Logan said once Ava was settled on the couch with a movie. What if a judge thinks she's right, that I'm not capable of raising her alone? Boss. Then we fight it, Victoria said firmly. We get you the best family law attorney in Manhattan. We document everything, your work schedule, Ava's school records, medical records showing you're healthy now. We prove that you're an excellent father. With what money? Do you know how much custody lawyers cost? I do, and I'll cover it. Logan stared at her. You can't. I can, and I will. Victoria's expression left no room for argument. Caroline's accusations exist because of the work environment I created. If she takes Ava from you because of something I did, I'll never forgive myself, so let me help, please. Victoria, that's not your responsibility. Yes, it is. Her voice cracked slightly. Logan, you and Ava have become, you matter to me, both of you. And I'm not going to sit back and watch someone destroy your family because of mistakes I made months ago. Logan looked at her, really looked at her, and saw raw emotion in her eyes. Fear, determination, something deeper that he wasn't ready to name yet. Okay, he said quietly. Okay, thank you. Victoria nodded, composing herself. I'll make some calls. I know several excellent family law attorneys. We'll get someone on this by tomorrow. True to her word, Victoria had a lawyer contacting Logan by the next morning. Margaret Chen, no relation to Officer Chen, was a fierce advocate with a reputation for winning complex custody cases. She met with Logan that afternoon, asking detailed questions about his relationship with Ava, his work situation, his health, and Caroline's involvement in their lives. Ms. Reed filed for emergency custody this morning, Margaret said, reviewing documents on her tablet. She's claiming you're mentally unstable due to work-related stress and recent cardiac issues. She's asking for temporary placement of Ava in her care while the courts investigate. Logan felt sick. Can she do that? She can try. The judge will review her petition and decide whether there's enough evidence to warrant temporary removal, given that you have no history of abuse or neglect, and that Ms. Reed has had no involvement in Ava's life for 2 years. I'd say her chances are slim. Margaret paused. However, your recent hospitalization does complicate things. I was cleared by my doctors. I'm healthy now. I know, but we need to prove that. Medical records, documentation of your improved work schedule, character witnesses who can testify to your parenting abilities. Margaret looked at him seriously. Mr. Hayes, I'll be blunt. If Miss Reed convinces a judge that your health is unstable and your work environment is dangerous, she could win temporary custody. Not permanent, that would require much more substantial evidence, but temporary placement while the investigation proceeds. How long would temporary be? Could be weeks, could be months. The thought of being separated from Ava for even a day made Logan's chest tighten with panic. What do I need to do? First, we gather evidence. Work records, medical clearances, testimony from employers and teachers. Second, we prepare for the hearing. Ms. Reed's petition will be reviewed by a judge within 72 hours. We need to be ready to counter every accusation she's made. I can provide employment records, Victoria said. She'd insisted on attending the meeting despite Logan's protests. Documentation of Mr. Hayes' schedule, his performance reviews, the changes we've implemented in our corporate culture, whatever you need. Margaret nodded approvingly. That helps. Mr. Hayes, does Ava have any other family? Grandparents? Cousins? Anyone who could testify to your relationship with her? Ace. No. Rebecca's parents are dead. Mine died years ago. It's just me and Ava. And me, Victoria added quietly, if that counts for anything. Margaret studied Victoria with professional assessment. You're romantically involved with Mr. Hayes? No, Logan said quickly. We're friends. Victoria's been helping us, but we're just friends. But you spend time with his daughter. You're present in their lives. Yes, Victoria confirmed. I see them most weekends. We do activities together. Museums, parks, movies. I'm not trying to replace Ava's mother. I'm part of their support system. That's good. The court will want to see that Mr. Hayes has a stable support network. Margaret made notes on her tablet. Ms. Reed is arguing that Mr. Hayes is isolated and overwhelmed. Demonstrating that he has help contradicts that narrative. Over the next 2 days, Logan existed in a state of constant low-grade panic. He couldn't sleep, couldn't focus at work. Every time his phone rang, he expected it to be Margaret telling him the court had granted Caroline temporary custody. Victoria noticed. She started showing up at his apartment in the evenings, bringing dinner and keeping him company while Ava was asleep. They'd sit on his couch talking about nothing and everything, and her presence was the only thing keeping Logan from completely falling apart. I keep thinking about what Caroline said, Logan admitted on the second night. About Rebecca, about how I wasn't there enough. You were there, Victoria said firmly. You were working to support your family. That's not the same as abandoning them. But what if she was lonely? What if she needed me and I was too busy to notice? Did Rebecca tell you that? Did she ever say she felt neglected? Logan thought back to his marriage. No. Logan thought back to, she always said she understood about my job, that she knew I was working hard for us. Bo iditske. Then believe her. Don't let Caroline rewrite your history because she needs someone to blame for her sister's death. Victoria shifted closer on the couch. Logan, you can't control what happened. Rebecca died in a car accident. That's not your fault. And it's not Caroline's fault. It's just a horrible thing that happened. I know. Rationally, I know. But grief doesn't care about rational. No. Victoria agreed quietly. It really doesn't. They sat in silence for a while, the TV playing quietly in the background. Eventually, Victoria spoke again. My father died of a heart attack, completely unexpected. He was 62 and healthy, and one day he just collapsed in his office. Her voice was distant. I was in London closing a deal. I got the call from his assistant. By the time I flew back, he was already gone. I'm sorry. The last conversation we had was an argument about the company. He thought I was expanding too aggressively, taking on too much debt. I told him he was being paranoid and old-fashioned. Victoria laughed bitterly. 3 days later, he was dead, and I never got to tell him he was right. That I was scared and overcompensating and just trying to prove I was good enough to carry his legacy. Logan reached over and took her hand. She gripped it tight, like she was drowning, and he was the only solid thing to hold on to. That's why you work so hard, Logan said, understanding clicking into place. You're trying to prove something to someone who's not here to see it. Yeah, pretty stupid, right? Not stupid. Human. Peace. Victoria looked at him, and something passed between them. A recognition of shared grief, shared guilt, shared struggle to move forward when part of you was still trapped in the past. We're quite a pair, Victoria said softly. Both of us haunted by people we loved. At least we're haunted together. She smiled, sad but genuine. Yeah,
At least there's that.
The custody hearing was scheduled for Friday afternoon. Logan took the day off work, spent the morning trying to prepare, and arrived at the courthouse feeling like he was walking toward his own execution. Margaret met him outside. "Remember what we discussed. Answer questions directly. Don't get emotional. Don't let Ms. Reed provoke you. What if the judge rules against me? Then we appeal. But let's not get ahead of ourselves." Margaret's expression was confident. "You're a good father, Mr. Hayes. The evidence supports that. Trust the process." The courtroom was smaller than Logan expected. Judge Patricia Moreno presided, a stern-looking woman in her 50s who reviewed documents with the focused intensity of someone who took her job very seriously. Caroline sat with her own attorney on the opposite side. She looked composed, righteous, like someone on a moral crusade. Logan wanted to hate her, but he could see Rebecca in her face. The same nose, the same jawline, and it made everything harder. Victoria sat in the gallery behind Logan, her presence a reminder that he wasn't alone in this. Judge Moreno called the hearing to order. "This is a preliminary review of an emergency custody petition filed by Caroline Reed regarding the minor child Ava Hayes. Miss Reed, your attorney may present your case." Caroline's lawyer stood, a slick-looking man named James Foster, who'd apparently made a career out of contentious family cases. "Your Honor, my client is seeking emergency custody of her niece due to serious concerns about the father's mental and physical health. Mr. Hayes was hospitalized 3 months ago for cardiac issues related to extreme work stress. He has no support system, no extended family, and a history of leaving his daughter unsupervised in his workplace." "Those are serious allegations," Judge Moreno said. "What evidence do you have?" Foster presented documents, medical records from Logan's hospital stay, statements from Caroline about Logan's absence during his marriage, even a written account from someone at Sinclair Enterprises describing how often Logan brought Ava to the office during late-night work sessions. Logan watched his life being dissected and weaponized, feeling powerless to stop it. Everything Foster said was technically true, but stripped of context, it painted a picture of a neglectful father on the verge of collapse. "My client is willing and able to provide a stable home for Ava," Foster concluded. "She has no health issues, she works regular hours as a school administrator, and she has the financial means to care for the child properly." "Mr. Hayes," Judge Moreno looked at Margaret. "Your response?" Margaret stood with the calm confidence of someone who knew her case was solid. "Your Honor, Ms. Reed's petition is based on outdated information and deliberate mischaracterization. Mr. Hayes' health incident occurred 3 months ago and was directly related to an unhealthy work environment, an environment that has since been completely restructured." She presented their own documents, medical clearances, work schedules, testimony from Ava's teachers describing Logan as an involved and attentive parent. Then she called Victoria to testify. Victoria took the stand with the same commanding presence she brought to board meetings. Foster tried to rattle her, asking pointed questions about her relationship with Logan and whether she was testifying out of guilt for nearly killing her employee. "Mr. Hayes' hospitalization was my fault," Victoria said plainly. "I created a workplace culture that prioritized results over people's well-being. And yes, I feel guilty about that, which is exactly why I've spent the past 3 months ensuring it never happens again. Not just for Logan, but for every employee in my company." "How convenient," Foster said sarcastically. "You nearly kill a man and then befriend him to avoid a lawsuit." "I befriended him because I care about him and his daughter, and because they're good people who deserve better than what I gave them." Victoria's gaze was steel. "Mr. Hayes is an exceptional father. I've seen him with Ava. I've watched him prioritize her needs even when it's difficult. I've seen him be present and patient and loving in ways that—" Her voice caught slightly. "In ways I wish my own father had been present for me." The courtroom was silent. Even Foster seemed caught off guard by the raw emotion in Victoria's testimony. Judge Moreno leaned forward. "Miss Sinclair, in your professional opinion, is Mr. Hayes mentally and physically capable of performing his job duties?" "Absolutely. He's one of the most competent people I've ever worked with, and more importantly, he maintains healthy boundaries now. He leaves work on time. He doesn't sacrifice his health or his relationship with his daughter for his career." Ball vant on suwatsang. Thank you. You may step down. Victoria returned to her seat, catching Logan's eye for a brief moment. He mouthed, "Thank you," and she nodded. Caroline took the stand next. She described her concerns about Logan, her memories of Rebecca complaining about his absence, her belief that Ava would be better off in a stable home environment. "Ms. Reed," Judge Moreno said, "when's the last time you saw your niece before attempting to take her from school?" Caroline hesitated. "At her mother's funeral, 2 years ago." 2 years? And in that time, did you maintain contact with Mr. Hayes, offer to help with childcare, provide any kind of support? No. But Logan never reached out either. Mr. Hayes lost his wife. He was grieving and learning to be a single parent. You lost your sister and then disappeared from your niece's life for 2 years. Judge Moreno's voice was sharp. And now you want emergency custody? I want to protect my niece from a father who's going to work himself to death and leave her with no one. That's speculation, not evidence. Judge Moreno reviewed her notes. Ms. Reed, I understand you're concerned, but nothing presented here demonstrates that Ava is in immediate danger. Mr. Hayes has stable employment, healthy work-life balance, appropriate medical clearance, and by all accounts is a loving and capable father. But his health, his health is fine. He has documentation from 2 separate physicians clearing him for full activity. Judge Moreno's expression softened slightly. Ms. Reed, if you want to be involved in your niece's life, I encourage you to reach out to Mr. Hayes and establish a relationship. But I'm not removing a child from her father based on hypothetical concerns and 2-year-old grievances. Caroline's face crumpled. You're making a mistake. I'm following the law. Judge Moreno turned to Logan. Mr. Hayes, I'm denying Ms. Reed's petition for emergency custody. Your daughter remains in your care. However, I'm ordering a follow-up evaluation in 3 months. A social worker will conduct home visits and interview both you and Ava to ensure her well-being. If there are any concerns, we'll revisit this matter. Relief hit Logan so hard he nearly collapsed. Margaret steadied him with a hand on his shoulder, smiling. Thank you, Your Honor, Logan managed. Don't thank me. Just keep being the father your daughter needs. Judge Moreno banged her gavel. This hearing is adjourned. Logan stood on shaky legs, watching Caroline storm out of the courtroom with her lawyer. She didn't look at him, didn't say goodbye, just left, carrying her anger and grief like weapons she refused to put down. Victoria appeared at his side. You okay? I think so. Logan's voice broke. She's staying with me. Ava's staying with me. Of course she is. You're her father. You're her home. Victoria pulled him into a hug right there in the courtroom, and Logan held on tight, letting himself feel the full weight of the relief and fear and exhaustion of the past week. When they finally pulled apart, Logan saw Margaret watching them with a knowing expression. You two are just friends? Margaret asked skeptically. Yes, Logan and Victoria said simultaneously. Uh-huh. Well, whatever you are, it works. That testimony from Ms. Sinclair made the difference. Judge Moreno could see how much you care about this family. Margaret packed up her briefcase. The 3-month evaluation is standard procedure. Just keep doing what you're doing. Be present for Ava. Maintain your work-life balance. Let the social worker see what I saw today. A good father who's doing his best. They left the courthouse together. Logan called Ava's school to let them know he was picking her up early, and Victoria insisted on coming along. Ava ran to him the moment she saw him, wrapping her arms around his waist. Did the bad lady take me away? No, baby. You're staying with me, always. Good. Ava looked up at Victoria. Did you help my daddy? I tried, Victoria said, but mostly your dad helped himself by being so good at taking care of you. They walked to Victoria's car together, Logan, Victoria, and Ava between them holding both their hands. It felt natural, this configuration, like something that had always been meant to happen, just waiting for the right circumstances to fall into place. Can we go home? Ava asked. I want to be home with you, Daddy. Yes, sweetheart. We can go home. Victoria drove them back to Logan's apartment. She helped him make dinner, something simple, pasta and vegetables. Nothing complicated, while Ava did homework at the kitchen table. It felt domestic and comfortable and terrifying all at once. After dinner, after Ava was in bed, Victoria lingered in the doorway like she wasn't quite ready to leave. "Thank you," Logan said, "for everything. The lawyer, the testimony, just being here. I couldn't have done this without you." "Yes, you could have, but I'm glad you didn't have to." Victoria hesitated. "Logan, can I ask you something?" "Sure." "What are we doing? This, us, whatever this is. I know we keep saying we're just friends, but it doesn't feel like just friends anymore," Logan finished. "No, it doesn't." Victoria looked scared, vulnerable in a way he'd never seen her, and I don't know if that's okay. If you're ready for that, if I'm even capable of being what you might need. Logan thought about Rebecca and grief and the 2 years he'd spent believing he'd never feel anything for anyone else again. He thought about how Victoria had become part of his life without him quite noticing when it happened, how she'd stood beside him through the custody fight, how Ava lit up whenever she was around. "I don't know if I'm ready," Logan admitted, "and I definitely don't know if we're capable of not screwing this up. But Victoria, I care about you, more than I probably should given everything that's happened between us." "I care about you too, both of you. So much it scares me." They stood there in his small apartment, two damaged people trying to figure out if they could build something together from their broken pieces. "We don't have to figure it out tonight," Logan said. "We can just keep going, see where it leads." "Yeah, okay." Victoria smiled, relief evident on her face. "I can do that." She left a few minutes later, and Logan stood in his quiet living room thinking about how dramatically his life had shifted in just a few months. From dying in an elevator to fighting for custody to maybe, possibly, falling for someone new. It wasn't smooth. Nothing about this situation was smooth, but maybe that was okay. Maybe messy and complicated was just what healing looked like when you were brave enough to try. The social worker arrived on a Wednesday afternoon, 3 weeks after the custody hearing. Logan had been expecting her. Margaret had warned him the home evaluation would happen sometime within the first month, but actually, opening his apartment door to find a middle-aged woman with a clipboard and a practiced smile made his stomach drop anyway. "Mr. Hayes, I'm Sandra Williams from Child Protective Services. We spoke on the phone." "Right. Come in." Logan stepped aside, acutely aware of every flaw in his modest apartment. The worn couch, the scuffed floors, the stack of work files he'd forgotten to put away that morning. Sandra entered with the assessing gaze of someone who'd seen every kind of living situation imaginable. She took in the space methodically, the kitchen with dishes drying in the rack, Ava's artwork covering the refrigerator, the bookshelf crammed with children's books, and a few of Logan's old college textbooks he'd never gotten rid of. "Where's Ava?" Sandra asked, settling onto the couch. "At school. She gets out at 3. I can pick her up early if you need to speak with her today." "That won't be necessary. I'll schedule a separate visit to observe you two together." Sandra pulled out her tablet. "This is just the initial home inspection. I need to see where Ava lives, talk to you about your daily routine, get a sense of the environment." Logan sat in the chair across from her, trying not to look as nervous as he felt. "What exactly are you looking for?" "What isaki armikan? Safety, stability, appropriate care, whether Ava has what she needs to thrive." Sandra's expression was neutral, professional. "Mr. Hayes, I've read the case file. I know about your hospitalization and Ms. Reed's accusations. I'm not here to judge you. I'm here to ensure Ava's well-being. She's doing well. Great, actually. Her grades are good. She's happy. She has friends at school, so I've spoken with her teachers. They corroborate that." Sandra made notes on her tablet. "Tell me about your typical day. What time do you wake up? When do you leave for work? Who watches Ava?" Logan walked her through his routine. Up at 6, breakfast with Ava, drop her at school by 8, work from 9 to 6, pick up from after-school program, dinner together, homework, bedtime by 8:30. It sounded stable when he said it out loud. Normal. Nothing like the chaos of 6 months ago when he'd been bringing Ava to the office at midnight. "And you work for Sinclair Enterprises? Victoria Sinclair's company?" "Yes. I'm director of strategic analysis now." "The same Victoria Sinclair who testified at your custody hearing?" Logan hesitated, sensing the trap in the question. "Yes. She's also a friend." How close of a friend? She spends time with me and Ava. We do things together on weekends. She's part of our support system. Sandra's expression remained neutral, but Logan could see her making mental calculations. Is Ms. Sinclair romantically involved with you? No, we're friends. The answer felt less true every time he said it, but Logan wasn't ready to examine why. Does Ava view her as a parental figure? No. Victoria has never tried to replace Ava's mother. She cares about us. She helps out. Sandra made more notes, and Logan had no idea if he was helping or hurting his case. After 30 minutes of questions about finances, health, childcare arrangements, and emergency contacts, she stood to inspect the apartment. Logan followed her through the rooms, watching as she checked the refrigerator, adequately stocked. Examined Ava's bedroom, small but clean, full of toys and books. Tested the smoke detectors, working, and noted the general state of cleanliness, lived in, but not concerning. Mr. Hayes, I need to ask you something directly, Sandra said as they returned to the living room. Are you stable, physically and mentally? Because Ms. Reed's concern, however she expressed it, isn't entirely without merit. You did have a significant health crisis. I'm stable. I have medical documentation. I've seen the documentation. I'm asking you as a person. Are you okay? The question caught Logan off guard. Not the clinical assessment he'd expected, but genuine concern. I'm better than I was, Logan said honestly. 6 months ago, I was barely holding it together, working myself to death, bringing my daughter to the office in the middle of the night, running on caffeine and desperation. But that's not my life anymore. I have balance now, support. I'm present for Ava in ways I wasn't before. Because your boss changed the work environment? Because Victoria realized what her company culture was doing to people and actually fixed it, which, yeah, sounds convenient and suspicious. But I've seen the changes. They're real. I'm not the only one benefiting from them. Sandra studied him for a long moment. Okay, I'll need to speak with Ava directly, observe the two of you together, and conduct a follow-up visit. But Mr. Hayes, nothing I've seen today concerns me. Your daughter has a safe home, adequate resources, and a father who clearly cares about her well-being. Relief washed over Logan. So Caroline's petition, Ms. Reed will receive a copy of my report. But unless something significant changes, I don't anticipate recommending any custody modifications. Sandra headed for the door, then paused. For what it's worth, I think Ms. Reed is projecting her grief onto you. She lost her sister and she needs someone to blame. That doesn't make you a bad father. After Sandra left, Logan sat on his couch and let himself breathe properly for the first time in weeks. One hurdle cleared. Just the follow-up visits to get through, and then maybe Caroline would finally accept that Ava was staying with him. His phone buzzed. Text from Victoria. How did it go? Logan typed back. Better than expected. She wants to observe me with Ava, but nothing concerning so far. Good. Want company tonight? I can bring dinner. Logan smiled despite his exhaustion. Yeah, that would be nice. Victoria showed up at 6:30 with Thai food and a bottle of wine that probably cost more than Logan's monthly grocery budget. Ava launched herself at Victoria the moment she walked through the door, chattering about her day at school and the art project she was working on. Can you help me with it? Ava asked, dragging Victoria toward her bedroom. It's really hard, and Daddy's not good at cutting straight lines. Yes. I heard that, Logan called after them. It's true. Ava's voice drifted back. You cut like a zigzag. Logan unpacked the food while listening to Victoria and Ava laugh together in the next room. This had become their routine over the past few weeks. Victoria showing up after work, helping with homework or art projects, or just keeping them company. She'd become part of their daily life so gradually that Logan hadn't noticed until it was already done. They ate dinner together, Ava dominating the conversation with stories about her friends and complaints about a boy in her class who kept stealing her crayons. Victoria listened with genuine interest, asking questions and offering advice with the seriousness of someone negotiating a corporate merger. Have you tried just asking him why he takes them? Victoria suggested. Because he's mean, Ava said like it was obvious. Maybe. Or maybe he likes you and doesn't know how to tell you. That's secret. Ava's face scrunched up in disgust. Ew, boys are gross. Not all boys, Victoria said, glancing at Logan. Your dad's pretty great. That's different. He's my daddy. After dinner and homework and the extended bedtime routine that Ava had perfected into an art form, Logan finally got his daughter into bed. He returned to the living room to find Victoria pouring wine into 2 glasses. You didn't have to open that, Logan said. I'm fine with beer, but I wanted to celebrate. You survived the home inspection. That deserves something better than beer. Victoria handed him a glass. To getting through the hard part. This isn't the hard part? The hard part was the custody hearing. Everything else is just paperwork and formality. She settled onto the couch, tucking her legs under her in a way that looked comfortable and unself-conscious. Sandra Williams has a reputation for being thorough but fair. If she said nothing concerned her, she meant it. Logan sat beside her, leaving careful space between them, even though part of him wanted to close that gap. How do you know about Sandra Williams? I asked around, called in some favors. I wanted to make sure you were getting a social worker who wouldn't be influenced by Caroline's accusations. You can't just manipulate the system like that. I didn't manipulate anything. I just gathered information. Victoria smiled slightly. There's a difference. Is there? In this case, yes. I didn't bribe anyone or pull strings. I just made sure you had a fair shot. She took a sip of wine. Logan, I know you think I'm overstepping, and maybe I am, but I can't sit back and watch Caroline destroy your family. Not when I have resources that can help. Why does this matter so much to you? Logan asked, not for the first time. I get that you feel guilty about what happened, but Victoria, this goes beyond guilt. You're in my apartment 3 nights a week. You're helping Ava with homework. You testified in court. This is more than friendship? Victoria finished quietly. Yeah, more than friendship. They sat in silence, the unspoken thing between them finally demanding acknowledgement. Logan could feel his heart rate increasing. That familiar flutter that used to signal panic but now felt like something different. Anticipation, maybe. Fear, definitely. But also hope. I don't know how to do this, Victoria said finally. Relationships. I'm terrible at them. I work too much. I'm emotionally unavailable. I have control issues that would require years of therapy to unpack. Sounds familiar, Logan said. I'm a widower with a 6-year-old daughter, abandonment issues, and a recent history of nearly dying from work stress. We're both disasters. But Victoria laughed. A real laugh, unguarded and genuine. We really are. But maybe disasters can work together, cancel each other out somehow. That's not how disasters work. Then maybe they amplify each other and we end up even more broken than before. Logan set down his wine glass, suddenly needing to be serious about this. Victoria, I'm scared. Of this, of us, of what it means. I haven't felt anything for anyone since Rebecca died. I didn't think I could. And then you started showing up in our lives, and suddenly I'm feeling things I wasn't ready to feel. What kind of things? Like maybe I could love someone again. Like maybe Ava could have something close to a complete family. Like maybe we could build something real together. He looked at her directly. But that terrifies me. Because loving people means risking loss, and I've already lost so much. Victoria reached over and took his hand, threading her fingers through his. I'm scared too. I don't know how to be what you and Ava need. I don't know if I'm capable of it. But Logan, I'm here. I keep showing up. That has to mean something. It means you care. It means I'm falling for you, Victoria corrected softly. Both of you. And I don't know what to do with that. Logan felt something shift in his chest, that careful wall he'd built around his heart cracking just enough to let possibility in. We could try, see what happens. Take it slow. How slow? Glacially slow. Ava comes first, always. And if this doesn't work, if it turns out we're better as friends, we need to be able to walk away without destroying everything we've built. I can do slow, Victoria said. I'm good at strategy, long-term planning. This isn't a corporate merger. I know. It's more important than that. She squeezed his hand. Logan, I promise I won't hurt Ava. Whatever happens between us, I'll always care about her. She's become so important to me. Like the daughter I never thought I'd have. That admission hung in the air between them, vulnerable and honest. Logan could see the fear in Victoria's eyes, the terror of caring this much about people who could leave, who could disappoint, who could make her feel things she'd spent years avoiding. "Okay," Logan said. "Let's try, slowly, carefully, with the understanding that we're both probably going to mess this up sometimes. I can live with that." Victoria smiled, and it transformed her entire face. "So what now? Do we tell Ava? Make some kind of announcement?" "Let's not make it weird. We just keep doing what we're doing, spending time together, being present. Eventually, Ava will figure it out, and when she asks, we'll tell her the truth." "Which is what exactly?" That you're important to us, that we care about you, that we're seeing where this goes. Victoria nodded slowly. "I can work with that." They sat together on the couch, hands linked, while the TV played quietly in the background. It wasn't dramatic or cinematic, just two people choosing to try despite their fear and damage and all the reasonable objections they could have raised. Eventually, Victoria left, but not before kissing Logan on the cheek, a soft, brief touch that promised more someday when they were both ready. Logan stood in his doorway watching her leave, feeling something he hadn't felt in years. Hopeful. Terrified. But definitely hopeful. The next few weeks settled into a new normal. Victoria continued showing up for dinners and weekend activities. Logan continued working his balanced schedule and being present for Ava. Sandra Williams conducted her follow-up visits and found nothing concerning. Caroline sent one email through her lawyer demanding to see Ava. Margaret responded with a carefully worded letter suggesting supervised visitation if Caroline was willing to work with a family therapist to address her underlying issues with Logan. Caroline never responded. At work, the Meridian integration finally completed successfully. The merger that had nearly killed Logan 6 months ago turned out to be profitable and well executed, largely because Victoria had actually listened to his concerns instead of bulldozing forward. "We make a good team," Victoria said during a post-merger celebration at the office. "Professionally speaking." "Just professionally?" Patricia Chen asked, appearing beside them with a knowing smile. "Because half the office thinks you two are dating." "We're not dating," Logan said automatically, then hesitated. It's complicated." "It's always complicated," Patricia said. "But Hayes, you look happy. Happier than I've ever seen you. Whatever you're doing, keep doing it." She walked away before Logan could respond. Victoria laughed quietly. "I think our secret isn't very secret," she said. "Does that bother you?" "No, does it bother you?" Logan thought about it. "Not really. Let people think what they want. As long as Ava's okay with it, I don't care what anyone else thinks." "When are we going to talk to her about us?" "When it feels right. When we're sure this is—" Logan paused, searching for the right words. "When we know we're not just caught up in proximity and trauma bonding." "Are we caught up in proximity and trauma bonding?" "Maybe. Partially, I don't know." Logan looked at her seriously. "But I also know I think about you constantly. I look forward to seeing you. Ava lights up whenever you're around. So maybe it started as trauma bonding, but I think it's become something more." Victoria's expression softened. "I think about you constantly, too. About both of you. When I'm at work, when I'm at home, when I'm supposed to be focusing on board meetings. It's annoying, actually." "Sorry?" "Don't be. It's best kind of annoying." She glanced around the office celebration, then back at Logan. "I want to kiss you right now, but I won't because we're at work and you said slow." Logan felt heat rise in his chest. "Rain check?" "Definitely." That rain check came 2 weeks later, on a Saturday evening after they'd taken Ava to an aquarium and come back to Logan's apartment for dinner. Ava had fallen asleep on the couch halfway through a movie, exhausted from the day's excitement. Logan carried her to bed while Victoria cleaned up the dinner dishes. When he returned to the kitchen, she was standing at the sink with her back to him, and something about the domestic simplicity of the moment made Logan's breath catch. "Hey," he said quietly. Victoria turned, drying her hands on a towel. "Hey yourself. Et pas it." They stood there in his small kitchen, the space between them charged with months of careful circling around what they both wanted. Logan took a step forward, then another. Victoria met him halfway. "Is this okay?" Logan asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Yeah, very okay. Heat up." Logan kissed her carefully, softly, like she was something precious he was afraid to break. Victoria responded with equal care, her hands coming up to rest on his shoulders while his found her waist. It wasn't desperate or urgent, just two people finally admitting what had been building between them for months. When they pulled apart, Victoria was smiling. That was nice. Yeah, it was. Can we do it again? Absolutely. Keep on. The second kiss was longer, deeper, more confident. Logan felt something in his chest unlock, some final piece of armor he'd been holding onto finally falling away. He'd thought he could never feel this way again after Rebecca. He'd been wrong. They stood in his kitchen, kissing like teenagers until they heard Ava stirring in the next room. They broke apart quickly, both of them slightly breathless and grinning like idiots. We should talk about what this means, Victoria said. Tomorrow. Let's talk tomorrow. Logan brushed a strand of hair behind her ear. Tonight, let's just be happy about it. I can do that. Ava appeared in the doorway, rubbing her eyes. I had a bad dream. Come here, sweetheart. Logan picked her up, holding her close. She was getting too big for this, but he wasn't ready to stop yet. Want me to read you another story? Can Miss Victoria read it? Ava asked, looking at Victoria with sleepy hope. Victoria's expression melted into something soft and vulnerable. I'd love to. They went to Ava's room together, Logan, Victoria, and Ava between them. Victoria read a story about a brave princess who saved herself, doing silly voices that made Ava giggle. Logan watched them together and felt his throat tighten with emotion. This was his family now. Not the one he'd lost, but a new one they were building together from broken pieces and second chances. After Ava fell back asleep, Logan walked Victoria to the door. Thank you for everything, for being here. There's nowhere else I'd rather be. Victoria kissed him again, quick and sweet. I'll see you tomorrow? Yeah, tomorrow. She left, and Logan stood in his quiet apartment feeling like maybe, finally, things were going to be okay. Not perfect, not smooth, but okay in the messy, complicated, beautiful way that real life actually worked. The next morning, Ava asked the question Logan had been both expecting and dreading. They were eating breakfast together, pancakes that Logan had actually cooked from scratch instead of pouring from a box, when Ava looked up with her fork halfway to her mouth. Daddy, do you love Miss Victoria? Logan's heart stuttered. Why do you ask, sweetheart? Because you smile different when she's here, and you look at her the way people look at each other in movies, the happy kind of movies. Logan set down his own fork, giving his daughter the honesty she deserved. I care about Victoria very much. She's become really important to both of us. But do you love her? Ava persisted. Like how you loved Mommy? It's different from how I loved Mommy, but yeah, I think maybe I'm starting to love her. Logan watched Ava's face carefully, trying to gauge her reaction. How do you feel about that? Ava was quiet for a moment, thinking seriously about the question. I like Miss Victoria. She's nice to me. She doesn't try to pretend she's my mom, but she's not just your boss anymore either. But no, she's not just my boss anymore. Is she going to be part of our family now? Would you want her to be? Ava nodded slowly. I think so. But Daddy, I don't want to forget Mommy. Logan's chest constricted with emotion. Oh, sweetheart. You'll never forget Mommy, I promise. Loving Victoria doesn't mean we stop loving Mommy. Love doesn't work like that. We have enough love for both of them. Okay. Ava took another bite of pancake. Can Miss Victoria come to my birthday party next month? Yeah, baby. She can definitely come to your birthday party. Good, because I want her there. Just like that, the conversation was over. Ava returned to her breakfast like they'd been discussing something as simple as weekend plans. Logan sat there marveling at his daughter's resilience, her capacity to accept change and love and new people into her life despite everything she'd already lost. He texted Victoria. Ava knows. She asked if I love you. I told her the truth. Victoria's response came immediately. What did you tell her? That I think I'm starting to. That it's different from what I had with Rebecca, but it's real. And what did she say? She wants you at her birthday party next month. I'll be there. Logan, yeah? I think I'm starting to love you too. Both of you. Just so you know. Logan read the message 3 times, feeling warmth spread through his chest. Good. That's really good. The weeks that followed were the happiest Logan had been in years. Work was stable and fulfilling. Ava was thriving in school. Victoria was present in their lives in ways that felt natural rather than forced. They didn't rush anything, took things slowly like they'd agreed. Victoria still had her own apartment, her own space. But she spent more evenings at Logan's place than not, helping with homework and cooking dinners, and just existing alongside them. Sandra Williams conducted her final home visit 6 weeks after the custody hearing. She observed Logan and Ava together, interviewed Ava privately, and reviewed all the documentation one last time. "Mr. Hayes," Sandra said as she prepared to leave, "I'm closing your case. My recommendation to the court will be that no custody modification is warranted. Ava is thriving in your care." "Thank you." Logan felt relief so profound it almost knocked him over. "Thank you so much. You did the work, not me. You changed your life. You created stability for your daughter. That's all on you." Sandra paused at the door. "And Mr. Hayes?" Ava mentioned that Miss Sinclair has been around more. "That's good. Every child benefits from having multiple adults who care about them." After Sandra left, Logan called Victoria immediately. "It's over. Logan, the case is closed. Caroline can't challenge the custody again without new evidence." "Logan, that's amazing." He could hear the genuine joy in her voice. "I'm so happy for you, for both of you. Come over tonight, please. I want to celebrate with you and Ava. I'll bring champagne and sparkling cider for Ava." Perfect. That night they celebrated properly. Dinner at Ava's favorite restaurant, then back to the apartment for cake and movies. Ava fell asleep between Logan and Victoria on the couch, her head on Logan's shoulder and her feet in Victoria's lap. "She's gotten comfortable with you," Logan said quietly, careful not to wake his daughter. "I'm comfortable with her too, with both of you." Victoria looked at Ava sleeping peacefully. "I never thought I wanted this. A family, kids, domestic simplicity. I thought I was happy building my empire and going home alone every night. And now I can't imagine going back to that life. It feels hollow compared to this." She met Logan's eyes. "I love you, both of you. I know we said we'd take it slow, but I need you to know that." "I love you too," Logan said, the words feeling both terrifying and right. "I didn't think I'd ever say that to anyone again. But Victoria, you showed up and you stayed, and you became part of our lives. And somewhere along the way, I fell for you." Victoria leaned over Ava's sleeping form and kissed him softly. "So what now?" "Now we keep building this thing we've started. Slowly, carefully, with Ava always at the center." "I can do that," Victoria whispered. "I want to do that." They sat together in Logan's small apartment, Ava asleep between them, and Logan felt something he hadn't felt since before Rebecca died. Complete. Like his family had found its shape again, different from before but still whole. But complete didn't mean easy, and Logan learned that lesson fast. 2 days after the case closed, Victoria showed up at his apartment looking rattled in a way he'd never seen. Her hair was messier than usual, her makeup slightly smudged, and her hands shook when she set down her bag. "What's wrong?" Logan asked immediately. "Board meeting. They're questioning the company restructuring, saying the work-life balance policies are making us less competitive, that our Q4 numbers are down because people aren't working hard enough anymore." Victoria paced his living room, agitation rolling off her in waves. "Richard Walters basically accused me of going soft. Said my father would never have tolerated this kind of, what did he call it? Corporate coddling. Your numbers are down? By 3%, which in the grand scheme means nothing, but Walters is using it as ammunition to reverse everything I've implemented." Victoria stopped pacing, turning to face Logan. "He wants to go back to the old way, the way that nearly killed you." Logan felt cold dread settle in his stomach. "Can he do that? Override your decisions? If he convinces enough board members, yes. I'm CEO, but I'm not untouchable, especially not if they think I'm letting personal feelings compromise business judgment." "Personal feelings?" Victoria's expression turned uncomfortable. "They know about us, or suspect. Walters made some pointed comments about my relationship with senior staff and whether it was affecting my decision-making. That's bullshit. The restructuring happened before we were even friends." "I know, but the optics are bad." Billionaire CEO changes entire company culture after almost killing an employee she later starts dating. It looks like guilt-driven overcompensation instead of sound business strategy. Logan sat down heavily on the couch. So, what are you going to do? I don't know. Fight, probably. Try to convince them the policies are working long-term, even if short-term numbers are slightly down. But Logan, Victoria's voice cracked. What if they're right? What if I've been so focused on not being the villain that I've actually made the company worse? You haven't. Your employees are happier, healthier, more productive. But the numbers don't reflect that yet. And in business, numbers are all that matter. That's not true. People matter. Sustainability matters. You can't just sacrifice human beings for quarterly profits. That's exactly what my father did. What every successful CEO does. Maybe Walters is right. Maybe I have gone soft. Logan stood up and grabbed her shoulders, forcing her to look at him. Listen to me. You didn't go soft. You grew a conscience. There's a difference. And yeah, maybe your numbers are down slightly right now, but that doesn't mean the restructuring was wrong. It means you're still figuring out how to balance profit with humanity. What if I can't? What if those two things are fundamentally incompatible? Then you pick humanity every single time. Logan's voice was firm. Victoria, I almost died because your company prioritized profit over people, and I wasn't the only one. How many other employees burned out? How many marriages failed? How many kids grew up barely knowing their parents because your old culture demanded everything? Victoria's eyes filled with tears. I know all of that, but Logan, if I lose control of the company, whoever takes over will undo everything. All those policies, all those changes, all the progress, gone. And people like you will be right back where you started. Then don't lose control. Fight for what you believe in. What if fighting isn't enough? Logan pulled her into a hug, feeling her shake against him. Then we deal with that when it happens. But Victoria, you don't get to give up just because it's hard. You told me once that you didn't want to be the villain anymore. Well, villains take the easy path. Heroes fight, even when they're scared. Victoria laughed wetly against his shoulder. When did you become the inspirational one? I learned from watching you refuse to give up on me even when I'd given up on myself. Logan pulled back to look at her. You can do this. I know you can. She nodded, wiping at her eyes. I have another board meeting in 3 days. I need to prepare, build my case, find a way to prove the restructuring is working. Then let's do that. What do you need? Data. Employee satisfaction surveys, productivity metrics, retention rates. Anything that shows the policies are having a positive impact, even if quarterly profits are slightly down. I can help with that. And I bet Patricia and half the senior staff would back you up if you asked them to. Victoria looked at him with something like wonder. Why are you helping me? At him with, this isn't your problem. Yes, it is. You're my... Logan paused, realizing he didn't know what to call her. Girlfriend felt too casual. Partner felt too formal. You're important to me. Your fight is my fight. I love you, Victoria said suddenly. I know I said it before, but I need you to know I mean it. You and Ava, you've become everything to me. I can't lose you. You're not going to lose us, I promise. Logan kissed her forehead. Now, let's figure out how to save your company. They spent the next 3 days building Victoria's case. Logan pulled data from every department, showing improved retention rates, decreased sick days, higher employee satisfaction scores. Patricia Chen provided testimony from senior staff about the positive cultural changes. Even Marcus Meridian, whose company had been absorbed 6 months ago, sent a letter praising the integration process and the healthy work environment. The night before the crucial board meeting, Victoria stayed at Logan's apartment. They sat at his kitchen table reviewing presentation slides while Ava slept in the next room. This is good, Victoria said, scrolling through the data. Really good, but Walters is still going to argue that culture doesn't matter if profits are down. Then you argue that short-term dips are expected during major transitions, that the long-term trajectory is more important than one quarter's numbers. He'll say I'm being naive, that the market doesn't care about long-term vision. Then you remind him that your father built his empire on long-term vision. that sustainable growth beats quick profits every time. Logan reached across the table and took her hand. Victoria, you know this stuff better than I do. You've been preparing for this your entire life. Trust yourself. I'm scared, she admitted quietly. I'm terrified I'm going to fail, that I'll lose everything I've built. Even if you do, you won't be alone. You'll have me and Ava. That counts for something, doesn't it? It counts for everything. Victoria squeezed his hand. Logan, if this goes badly tomorrow, if I lose control of the company, things are going to change. I might not have the resources to help you anymore. The lawyer fees, the financial support, all of it. I never asked for your money. I asked for you. Logan's voice was steady. Whatever happens tomorrow, we'll figure it out together. That's what families do. Victoria's expression crumpled. I'm not used to having people who stay. Everyone in my life has always wanted something from me. Money, connections, access. You're the first person who seems to just want me. I do want you, exactly as you are, with or without the billions. Logan stood and walked around the table, pulling her to her feet. You're going to go into that boardroom tomorrow, and you're going to fight like hell. And win or lose, you're coming back here afterward, to me and Ava, because that's where you belong now. She kissed him then, deep and desperate and full of fear and love and hope all tangled together. When they broke apart, Victoria was crying again, but smiling through it. How did I get so lucky? She whispered. We both got lucky. Now come on. You need sleep before tomorrow. They went to bed together, just sleeping, Logan holding Victoria while she tried to quiet her racing mind. Somewhere around 3 a.m., she finally relaxed against him, her breathing evening out into sleep. Logan lay awake a while longer, thinking about how dramatically their lives had changed in less than a year. From dying in an elevator to this. From complete isolation to having someone worth fighting for. It still scared him sometimes, loving Victoria. But it scared him more to imagine his life without her. The board meeting was scheduled for 10 a.m. Logan took the day off work, dropped Ava at school, and spent the morning trying not to obsessively check his phone for updates. Victoria had promised to text him when it was over, but hours passed with nothing. At 2:30 p.m., his phone finally rang. How did it go? Logan answered immediately. I need to see you. Can you meet me somewhere? Anywhere, I need to see you. Victoria's voice sounded strange, not quite happy, not quite sad, something complicated in between. Where are you? Outside Ava's school. I wanted to be here when she got out. Logan's heart clenched. I'll be there in 10 minutes. Wo? Tuan. He caught a cab and arrived at the school just as kids started streaming out the doors. Victoria stood near the entrance, still in her business suit, looking exhausted and vulnerable and somehow younger than usual. What happened? Logan asked, reaching her side. I won. Barely. The vote was 7-5 in my favor. The policies stay in place. Victoria's voice was flat, emotionless. That's good, right? That's what you wanted. Yes, but Logan, it cost me. Walters threatened to resign from the board. 2 other members are talking about leaving too. I won the battle, but I might have fractured the entire company in the process. You did the right thing. Did I? I chose principles over stability. I chose people over profits. What if that destroys everything my father built? Then you'll build something better. Logan pulled her into a hug right there in front of the school. Victoria, you fought for what you believed in. That takes courage. Whatever happens next, you faced it head on instead of compromising who you want to be. She held on to him tight. I'm so tired of fighting. I know, but you don't have to fight alone anymore. Daddy, Miss Victoria. Ava came running over, her backpack bouncing against her shoulders. She threw herself at both of them, wrapping her small arms around Logan's legs while reaching up for Victoria. You're both here. Ava's face lit up with pure joy. Are we doing something fun today? Logan and Victoria looked at each other over Ava's head. Despite everything, the stress, the fear, the uncertainty about what came next, Logan felt something close to peace. Yeah, sweetheart, he said. We're doing something fun. Let's go home. They went back to Logan's apartment together. Victoria changed out of her suit into jeans and a sweater she'd started keeping at his place. They made dinner as a team, Logan handling the pasta while Victoria supervised Ava making salad, which mostly involved Ava eating cherry tomatoes and sneaking cucumber slices to both adults. Over dinner, Ava talked about her day and her upcoming birthday party and whether they could get a dog. Logan and Victoria exchanged glances at that last request, both of them silently agreeing to table that discussion for later. "Miss Victoria," Ava said suddenly, her voice turning serious, "are you sad about something?" Victoria looked surprised. "What makes you think that?" "You have your sad face. The one you get sometimes when you think nobody's watching." Well, Logan watched Victoria struggle with how to answer. She'd never been good at being vulnerable, especially with children. But Ava waited patiently, her 6-year-old intuition sensing something important. "I had a hard day at work," Victoria said finally. "I had to make some difficult choices." "Did you make good choices?" "I think so, but not everyone agreed with me." "That's okay," Ava said with childhood certainty. "My teacher says sometimes doing the right thing means other people won't like you, but you still have to do it anyway." Victoria's eyes filled with tears. "Your teacher is very smart." "She is, and so are you." Ava reached across the table and patted Victoria's hand. "It's okay to be sad sometimes. Daddy's sad sometimes too. But we're here together, so it's okay." Logan felt his throat tighten with emotion. His daughter, this incredible little human he and Rebecca had created, understood compassion and presence in ways most adults never learned. "Thank you, Ava," Victoria said softly. "That helps a lot." After dinner, they settled on the couch for a movie. Ava insisted on sitting between Logan and Victoria, one small hand holding each of theirs, completely content with her makeshift family. Halfway through the movie, Victoria's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, then went pale. "What's wrong?" Logan asked quietly, not wanting to alarm Ava. "Email from Richard Walters. He's resigning from the board effective immediately, and he's taking 2 other members with him." Victoria, "It's fine, I expected this," but her voice was tight with stress. "I'll need to find replacements, people who share my vision for the company. Can I help, Mun?" "You already are, just by being here." Victoria looked down at Ava, who was absorbed in the movie. What we have right here, this is why I fought so hard today. Because I needed to believe that success doesn't require sacrificing your humanity, that you can build something meaningful without destroying people in the process. "You can," Logan said firmly. "You're proving it right now." They finished the movie. Logan put Ava to bed while Victoria cleaned up the kitchen. When he returned to the living room, she was standing at the window looking out at the city lights. "I've been thinking," Victoria said without turning around, "about the future, about what I want my life to look like. And I want this. Exactly this. Dinner with you and Ava. Movie nights on the couch. Helping with homework and hearing about kindergarten drama, and just being present. Being part of something that matters more than quarterly earnings." Logan walked over and wrapped his arms around her from behind. "You can have that." "Can I? Or am I deluding myself that I can be both the CEO and the person who shows up for family dinner every night? You're already doing it. Maybe not perfectly, but you're doing it. What if it's not enough? What if Ava needs more than I can give? What if you realize you'd be better off with someone who doesn't have a company to run and board members to manage and 1,000 other responsibilities pulling them in different directions?" Ipsha. Logan turned her around to face him. "Victoria, stop. You're spiraling. Yes, you have a demanding job. Yes, balancing everything is hard. But you show up. You're here. That's what matters to me and Ava." "But for how long? How long before you get tired of competing with my career for attention?" "I'm not competing with your career. I'm part of your life alongside your career." "There's a difference." Logan cupped her face in his hands. "I love you. Not despite your ambition, but including it. You're allowed to be a CEO and a partner and a parental figure. Those things aren't mutually exclusive. Rebecca didn't work. She stayed home with Ava. She was always available, always present. I can never be that. I don't want you to be Rebecca. I loved her completely, and I'll always miss her. But Victoria, I love you too, differently, for different reasons. You don't need to compete with a memory." Victoria searched his face. You mean that? I mean it. You're enough exactly as you are, flaws and all. Oh. She kissed him then, and Logan tasted salt from her tears. They stood in his living room holding each other while the city hummed outside, and Ava slept peacefully in the next room. And Logan thought about how strange and wonderful it was that brokenness could rebuild itself into something new. The next few months settled into a rhythm. Victoria stabilized her board, bringing in 3 new members who supported her vision for ethical business practices. The company's numbers slowly improved as employee productivity increased and retention rates soared. Logan continued thriving in his director role, finally achieving the balance between career and fatherhood that had seemed impossible a year ago. Ava flourished in school, making friends and bringing home art projects that covered every available surface in the apartment. And slowly, carefully, they became a family. Victoria started staying over more nights than not. She had a drawer in Logan's dresser, a toothbrush in the bathroom, a favorite coffee mug in the cabinet. Ava stopped calling her Miss Victoria and started just calling her Victoria, which somehow felt more intimate than any formal title. They celebrated Ava's 7th birthday together, a party at the park with her school friends and way too much cake and presents that made Ava shriek with joy. Victoria had brought a telescope, introducing Ava to the stars with the same enthusiasm she brought to corporate presentations. Look at Jupiter, Victoria said, adjusting the telescope while Ava peered through the lens. See those little dots beside it? Those are moons. Wow, Ava breathed. They're so tiny. They're actually huge. They just look tiny because they're so far away. Victoria glanced at Logan, who was watching them with an expression she'd learned to recognize, love mixed with contentment and just a hint of sadness that Rebecca wasn't here to see this. Later, after all the guests had left and Ava was exhausted but happy, they walked back to Logan's apartment together. Ava held both their hands, swinging between them and chattering about her favorite presents. This was the best birthday ever, Ava declared, even better than when I was 6. What made it so special? Logan asked. Because you were both here, together, like a real family. Logan felt his chest tighten. He looked at Victoria over Ava's head and saw his own emotion reflected in her eyes. We are a real family, Victoria said softly. If that's what you want us to be. I do, Ava said immediately. I want us to always be together. Always is a long time, kiddo, Logan said gently. But we can definitely try. That night, after Ava was asleep, Logan and Victoria sat on his couch talking about the future. About what always might actually look like. About whether Victoria should finally give up her apartment and officially move in. About whether they were ready to take that step. I want to, Victoria said, but Logan, I need to know you're sure that this isn't just comfort or convenience or... It's not, I'm sure. Logan took her hand. I love you. Ava loves you. You're part of our lives in every way that matters. Making it official just makes sense. What about Rebecca? Does this feel like betraying her memory? Logan was quiet for a moment, thinking about his late wife and what she would have wanted for him and Ava. Rebecca would want us to be happy. She'd want Ava to have a family again. And I think, his voice caught, I think she'd approve of you, of how you've fought to be better, how you've shown up for us. I hope so, Victoria whispered. I really hope so. So we're doing this? You're moving in? Yeah, let's do this. They spent the next 2 weeks moving Victoria's things into Logan's apartment. It was chaos, combining 2 lives into one space, figuring out where everything fit, negotiating whose furniture stayed and whose went to storage. Ava loved every minute of it, helping Victoria unpack boxes and claiming space in the closet for Victoria's shoes. You have so many shoes, Ava observed, surveying the collection. Why do you need so many? I don't, really, Victoria admitted. I just kept buying them because, I don't know, it made me feel successful, I guess. That's silly. You're already successful. You don't need shoes to prove it. Victoria laughed. You're absolutely right. Want to help me figure out which ones to keep? They spent an hour sorting through shoes, Ava offering opinions with brutal 6-year-old honesty, while Victoria listened seriously to each verdict. Logan watched from the doorway, marveling at how naturally they interacted. Victoria had gone from someone who barely understood children to someone who could spend an hour discussing footwear with a first grader and genuinely enjoy it. That night, with most of the unpacking done and Ava asleep in her room, Logan and Victoria collapsed on the couch together. "I can't believe we actually did this," Victoria said. "I'm living in Brooklyn in a one-bedroom apartment that costs less per month than my old place cost per week. Having regrets already? Not even a little bit." She turned to look at him. "This feels right, like I'm finally where I'm supposed to be." "Me too," Logan said. "For the first time since Rebecca died, I feel like we're not just surviving, we're actually living." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, tired but content. Eventually, Victoria spoke again. "Logan, there's something I need to tell you." His heart rate spiked. "What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong. I've been thinking about us, about our future together, and I want to ask you something, but I'm terrified you'll say no." "Victoria, you're scaring me. What is it?" She took a deep breath. "I want to marry you, eventually, when you're ready. But I need to know if that's something you even want. If you can imagine that kind of future with me." Logan felt his breath catch. Marriage. He'd been married before, to Rebecca, and losing her had nearly destroyed him. The idea of making that kind of commitment again, of being that vulnerable. But looking at Victoria now, seeing the fear and hope and love in her expression, Logan realized he wasn't scared, he was ready. "Yes," he said simply. "I want that too." "Really? You're not just saying that?" "Really? Victoria, you've become everything to me and Ava. Marrying you feels like the most natural thing in the world." She kissed him hard, and Logan could taste relief and joy and promise in that kiss. When they broke apart, Victoria was crying again, happy tears this time. "I don't have a ring," she said, laughing through tears. "I completely messed up the proposal part. I don't need a ring, I just need you." Logan pulled her close. "But maybe we wait to tell Ava until we're actually engaged? Give her time to adjust to you living here first?" "That makes sense. We've already changed so much in her life. Let's take this one step at a time." They went to bed that night, curled up together in what was now their bedroom, in what was now their home, planning a future that felt both terrifying and inevitable. 2 months later, on a Saturday morning that felt like any other, Logan took Ava to the park, while Victoria claimed she needed to work from home on a big presentation. "She works too much," Ava complained, swinging higher on the swings. "She's trying to balance everything," Logan defended. "It's not easy being a CEO. "I know, but I miss her when she works on weekends. We'll see her later. Maybe we can convince her to take the rest of the day off." They spent 2 hours at the park, then stopped for ice cream on the way home. When they got back to the apartment, Logan noticed immediately that something was different. The living room had been transformed. Candles everywhere, rose petals scattered across the floor, music playing softly from the speaker. And Victoria standing in the middle of it all, wearing a dress instead of her usual casual weekend clothes. "What's all this?" Logan asked, though his heart was already racing with understanding. "Daddy, Victoria made everything pretty." Ava rushed forward, delighted by the decorations. "Ava, sweetheart," Victoria said gently, "can you give me and your dad a minute alone? Your tablet's on your bed with a new game I downloaded for you." "Okay." Ava ran to her room, completely oblivious to what was happening. Victoria turned to Logan and he saw she was shaking. "I know we said we'd wait, but I couldn't. Logan, this past year with you and Ava has been the best year of my life. You've taught me what actually matters. You've shown me how to be human instead of just successful. And I love you more than I ever thought I could love anyone." She dropped to one knee, pulling out a small box. Logan felt tears start in his eyes. "Logan Hayes, will you marry me?" He pulled her to her feet before she could finish, kissing her hard. "Yes, absolutely yes." Victoria laughed and cried simultaneously, fumbling to get the ring out of the box. It was simple. A platinum band with a single diamond, elegant but not ostentatious. Logan held out his hand and she slipped it on. Then they stood there in their living room, holding each other while the candles flickered around them. "We should tell Ava," Logan said. "Are you sure she's ready?" Only one way to find out. They went to Ava's room together. She was absorbed in her tablet game, but looked up when they entered. Ava, Victoria said, crouching down beside the bed. Your dad and I need to tell you something important. Ava's eyes went wide. Are you having a baby? What? No, not yet anyway. Victoria glanced at Logan, who shrugged. They hadn't actually discussed kids. We wanted to tell you that we're getting married. Ava stared at them for a long moment. Then her face split into the biggest smile Logan had ever seen. Really? You're getting married? That means we'll be a real family forever? We're already a real family, Logan said. But yes, Victoria and I are getting married. Ava launched herself at them both, wrapping her arms around their necks. This is the best day ever. Can I be in the wedding? Can I wear a fancy dress? You can wear the fanciest dress we can find, Victoria promised. And yes, you'll absolutely be in the wedding. You're the most important part. They spent the rest of the day celebrating, ordering too much takeout, watching movies, and letting Ava ask a million questions about the wedding. When would it be? Where would they do it? What kind of cake would they have? Could her friends come? That night, after Ava finally fell asleep still buzzing with excitement, Logan and Victoria lay in bed together. I can't believe we're actually doing this, Logan said. Having second thoughts? Not even close. Just amazed at how much can change in a year. Last year at this time, I was barely surviving. Now I'm engaged to an incredible woman, and my daughter is happier than I've seen her since Rebecca died. Do you think Rebecca would be okay with this? Victoria asked quietly. With us? Logan thought about his late wife, her kindness, her belief in second chances, her capacity for love. I think she'd be happy we found each other, that Ava has someone else who loves her. Rebecca always said life was too short not to grab happiness when it showed up. Smart woman. The smartest. Logan pulled Victoria closer. But you're pretty smart too, and brave, and everything I didn't know I needed. Same, Victoria whispered. You saved my life, Logan. Both of you. You reminded me what it means to be human, what actually matters. They fell asleep like that, wrapped up in each other, planning a future that had seemed impossible just months before. The year that followed was the happiest of Logan's life since Rebecca's death. He and Victoria planned a small wedding for the following spring, just close friends and colleagues, nothing fancy despite Victoria's wealth. Ava was their junior bridesmaid, taking her role incredibly seriously and bossing around everyone who would listen. The ceremony was in a small garden in Brooklyn, intimate and meaningful. Logan cried when Victoria walked down the aisle. Ava cried because Logan was crying. Even Patricia Chen teared up, which she later claimed was allergies despite it being January. They honeymooned in Maine, the three of them together, because neither Logan nor Victoria could imagine going anywhere without Ava. They stayed in a cabin by the ocean, spending days exploring tide pools and nights watching stars through Victoria's telescope. This is nice, Ava said one evening as they sat on the beach together. Being a family. Yeah, it really is, Logan agreed, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. Victoria sat on Ava's other side, and together they watched the sun set over the Atlantic. Logan thought about the journey that had brought them here, from dying in an elevator to this moment of contentment. It hadn't been easy. Nothing about their story had been smooth or simple, but it had been real. Messy and complicated and full of mistakes and second chances and the hard work of learning to love again after loss. Daddy? Ava's voice broke through his thoughts. Do you think Mommy would be happy about our family? Logan felt Victoria tense beside them, but he answered honestly. I think your mom would love Victoria, and I think she'd be so proud of how brave you've been through all of this. I miss her sometimes, Ava said softly. Me too, sweetheart, every day. But missing her doesn't mean we can't love Victoria too. Love doesn't work like that. We have enough love for everyone. That's what Victoria said once, remember? Ava looked up at Victoria. When I asked if loving you meant forgetting Mommy. I remember, Victoria said, her voice thick with emotion. And it's still true. Your mom will always be part of this family, Ava. Always. They sat together as the sun disappeared below the horizon and stars started appearing overhead. Three people who'd found each other in the wreckage of loss and ambition and near death, and somehow built something worth keeping. It wasn't perfect. They still fought sometimes, about work schedules and parenting decisions and all the normal things families fought about. Victoria still struggled with work-life balance. Logan still had moments of grief that knocked him sideways. Ava still had nightmares about losing her father. But they faced it together. That made all the difference. Later that night, with Ava asleep in the cabin and the ocean crashing outside, Victoria and Logan lay in bed talking about the future, about whether they wanted more children, about retirement plans and college funds and growing old together. "I never thought I'd have this," Victoria admitted. "A family, a real home, someone who loves me for who I am instead of what I can provide." "You deserve all of it," Logan said firmly. "Every bit of happiness." "So do you. After everything you've been through, losing Rebecca, raising Ava alone, nearly dying, you deserve this peace. We both do. And we're going to protect it. Whatever comes next, we face it together." "Together," Victoria agreed, sealing the promise with a kiss. And as Logan drifted off to sleep with his wife beside him and his daughter safe in the next room, he realized something profound. The worst night of his life, collapsing in that elevator, terrified and broken, had somehow led to the best parts. To Victoria. To healing. To this family they'd built from nothing but hope and stubbornness and the refusal to give up on each other. It hadn't been smooth. It had been hard and scary and uncertain. But that was okay. Because real life wasn't smooth. Real life was messy and complicated and full of second chances for people brave enough to take them. And Logan Hayes, Victoria Sinclair, and Ava Hayes were nothing if not brave. 1 year after the wedding, Logan stood in the kitchen of their new Brooklyn brownstone, watching Victoria teach Ava how to make pancakes from scratch. "No, like this," Victoria was saying, guiding Ava's hand as she whisked the batter. Gentle circles. "You're not trying to kill it." "But it's lumpy," Ava protested. "Lumpy is fine. Lumpy means it'll taste homemade instead of perfect." "Oh," Logan smiled at that. A year ago, Victoria Sinclair wouldn't have known what homemade pancakes looked like, let alone that lumpy batter was acceptable. Now she stood in their kitchen on a Saturday morning, flour on her shirt and her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, teaching his daughter that imperfection had its place. They'd moved into the brownstone 6 months after the wedding. Victoria had wanted to buy something massive in Manhattan, but Logan had pushed back. Ava needed stability, not a showpiece. They'd compromised on this place, big enough for a growing family, modest enough to still feel like home. "Daddy, come flip the first one," Ava called. "Victoria says I'm not ready yet." "Because you'll burn yourself," Victoria said, but she was smiling. "Your dad has more experience with hot skillets." "Yeah." Logan joined them at the stove, carefully flipping the pancake while Ava watched with intense concentration. These mornings had become routine, the three of them cooking together, making messes, laughing at failures. It felt normal now, natural, but normal hadn't come easy. The first few months of marriage had been rough. Victoria had struggled to truly disconnect from work, checking emails during dinner and taking calls during Ava's bedtime. Logan had struggled with resentment, with feeling like he was competing for her attention. They'd fought about it more than once. "You said things would be different," Logan had said during one particularly bad argument. "You promised you wouldn't let work consume everything." "I'm trying," Victoria had shot back. "Do you know how hard it is to run a company and be present for a family? I'm doing my best." Your best still has you on your laptop at 10 p.m. while Ava's asking why you can't read her a story. That had hit home. Victoria had closed the laptop immediately, gone to Ava's room, and read 3 stories in a row. The next day, she'd hired another executive to share her workload. It hadn't fixed everything overnight, but it had been a start. Marriage meant constant adjustment, constant negotiation, constant choosing each other even when it was hard. "These look terrible," Ava announced, examining the finished pancakes. "They look great," Victoria corrected. "Not Instagram perfect, but real. That's better." They sat down to eat together, syrup dripping everywhere, Ava talking nonstop about her upcoming school field trip. Logan caught Victoria's eye across the table and saw contentment there. She'd gained weight since they married. Not much, but enough that her face had filled out, lost that sharp edge of someone surviving on coffee and stress. She looked healthier, happier. "What are you staring at?" Victoria asked, catching him looking. "You." You're beautiful. I have syrup on my face. Still beautiful. Ava made exaggerated gagging sounds. You guys are so gross. Why do adults always do that? Do what? Logan asked innocently. Get all mushy and weird. My friend Emma's parents do it too. It's so embarrassing. Wait until you're older, Victoria said. Someday you'll understand. Never. I'm never getting married. Boys are still gross. Even your daddy? Logan teased. Ava considered this seriously. Daddy's different. He's not a boy. He's my dad. That's better. Yeah. After breakfast, Ava ran off to get ready for her friend's birthday party. Logan and Victoria cleaned up together, moving around each other with the practiced ease of people who'd learned each other's rhythms. Patricia called yesterday, Victoria said, scrubbing a plate. The Q2 numbers are in. We're up 17% from last year. That's incredible. It is. Turns out treating employees like humans instead of robots is actually good for business. Who knew? Victoria's voice was dry but satisfied. Walter sent me an email. First communication since he resigned. He wanted to know if I'd consider him for a consulting position. Logan nearly dropped the pan he was drying. You're kidding. Nope. Apparently his new company went under within 6 months. Toxic culture, massive turnover, clients jumping ship. He wants back in. What did you tell him? I told him I'd think about it. Victoria rinsed another plate. Which is corporate speak for no, but I'm too professional to say it directly. You could hire him back. Prove you're the bigger person. I could. But Logan, some people don't change. Walters believed success required cruelty. I'm not bringing that energy back into my company just to make a point. She looked at him. Besides, I learned something important this year. Forgiveness doesn't mean letting toxic people back into your life. It means releasing the anger so they can't hurt you anymore. Walters can find his redemption somewhere else. Logan thought about Caroline, who'd sent exactly one email in the past year, a stiff, formal apology that felt more obligatory than genuine. He'd responded politely, but hadn't pursued contact. Some relationships weren't worth salvaging. Speaking of people changing, Victoria continued, I got a call from Marcus Meridian. He's launching a new venture, sustainable tech manufacturing. He wants Sinclair Enterprises to be an investor. Are you interested? Maybe. It's risky but innovative. The kind of thing my father would have dismissed as idealistic nonsense. Victoria smiled, which makes me want to do it even more. Prove that profit and principles can coexist. You've already proved that. To myself, yes, but the business world needs more examples. More people willing to show that you don't have to destroy lives to build empires. Logan pulled her into a hug, still amazed sometimes that this woman, brilliant, driven, complicated, had chosen him and Ava. I'm proud of you, for everything you've built, everything you're becoming. I'm proud of us, Victoria corrected. We built this together. The doorbell rang. Ava came thundering down the stairs, dressed in her favorite purple dress and light-up sneakers. That's Emma's mom! I gotta go! They walked her to the door together, Victoria kneeling down to fix Ava's collar, while Logan made sure she had the birthday present they'd wrapped the night before. Be good, Logan said. And remember, I know, Daddy. Say thank you, don't eat too much cake, and call if I need you. Ava rolled her eyes with the exasperation of a 7-year-old who'd heard this lecture 100 times. And have fun, Victoria added, pressing a kiss to Ava's forehead. I will. Ava hugged them both quickly, then ran out to Emma's mom's car. Logan and Victoria stood in the doorway watching the car drive away. The house felt suddenly quiet without Ava's energy filling every corner. We have 4 hours alone, Victoria said. What should we do? We could catch up on work. Absolutely not. We're terrible at work-life balance when Ava's not here to enforce it. Victoria grabbed his hand. Come on, I have an idea. She led him to their bedroom where she'd apparently been planning something. 2 packed bags sat by the closet. What's this? Logan asked. Spontaneous adventure. Emma's mom is keeping Ava overnight. I arranged it yesterday. We're going to the Catskills. There's a bed and breakfast I've been wanting to try. Logan stared at her. You planned a spontaneous getaway? Bus cute was. I know it's an oxymoron, but Logan, when's the last time we did something just for us? No Ava, no work, no responsibilities. Just us. He thought about it. Months, probably. They'd been so focused on building their family and stabilizing Victoria's company that they'd neglected the relationship at the center of it all. Okay, Logan said. Let's go. They drove north through fall foliage, the trees exploding in reds and golds that made the whole world look like it was on fire. Victoria had her hand on Logan's thigh while he drove, something she did unconsciously now whenever they were in the car together. The bed and breakfast was perfect, a converted farmhouse with creaky floors and a porch that overlooked rolling hills. Their room had a four-poster bed, a fireplace, and windows that framed the autumn landscape like paintings. This is nice, Logan said, dropping their bags. Really nice. I thought we could use it. Victoria wrapped her arms around him from behind. Time to remember why we fell in love in the first place. They spent the afternoon hiking nearby trails, holding hands and talking about everything and nothing. No discussions about quarterly earnings or parent-teacher conferences or the million little logistics of daily life. Just two people enjoying each other's company. That evening, sitting on the porch with wine and a blanket wrapped around them, Victoria got quiet in a way that usually meant she was working up to something important. "What's on your mind?" Logan asked. "I've been thinking about having a baby." Logan's hand tightened on his wine glass. A baby. "I know we haven't really discussed it, and I know you've already raised one child mostly alone, so asking you to do it again feels selfish. But Logan, I want a baby. With you. I want Ava to have a sibling. I want to experience pregnancy and midnight feedings and all the chaos that comes with it. You hate chaos. I'm learning to love it." Victoria turned to face him. "But I need to know if this is something you want too. Because I won't push if you're done with the baby stage. You've earned the right to say no." Logan thought about late-night feedings and diaper changes and the exhausting reality of infants. He thought about Ava as a baby, how Rebecca had handled most of the hard parts while he'd worked too much and missed too many milestones. But he also thought about doing it differently this time. Being present. Splitting responsibilities equally with someone who was actually his partner in every sense. "I want it," Logan said. "I want a baby with you, a chance to do it right this time." Victoria's face lit up with joy. "Really? You're not just saying that? Really? Let's have a baby. Let's expand this messy, complicated, wonderful family we've built." She kissed him hard, wine forgotten, both of them laughing with the giddy excitement of a decision that would change everything again. "Ava's going to lose her mind," Victoria said. "She's been asking for a baby sibling for months." "Has she?" "She tells me all the time, says her friend Maya has a baby brother, and it's the coolest thing ever." Victoria smiled. "I think she wants someone to boss around." "That sounds like our daughter." They spent the rest of the weekend wrapped up in each other, talking about nursery colors and baby names, and whether they wanted to find out the gender or be surprised. It felt surreal and exciting and terrifying all at once. On the drive home Sunday afternoon, Logan's phone rang. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer, but something made him pick up. "Mr. Hayes? This is Sandra Williams from Child Protective Services." Logan's stomach dropped. "Is something wrong with Ava?" "No, nothing like that. I'm calling because Caroline Reed contacted our office. She's requesting supervised visitation with Ava." "What? I thought that was settled." "So did we, but Ms. Reed has apparently been attending therapy as we suggested in our report. She has documentation showing she's addressed her grief and anger issues. She's not requesting custody, just the opportunity to have a relationship with her niece." Logan felt Victoria's hand find his knee, grounding him. "And if I say no? That's your right as Ava's father. But Mr. Hayes, I've reviewed Miss Reed's file. She's put in genuine work, and Ava is old enough now to have input on whether she wants contact with her aunt. It might be worth considering." After hanging up, Logan sat in the parked car trying to process. Caroline wanted back in their lives. After everything she'd put them through, after trying to take Ava away, she wanted another chance. "What are you thinking?" Victoria asked quietly. "I'm thinking I want to protect Ava from anyone who might hurt her, including Caroline." But I'm also thinking about what you said earlier, about forgiveness not meaning letting toxic people back in. but releasing anger so they can't hurt you. Maybe Caroline's worked through her issues. Maybe she deserves a chance to know Ava. Or maybe she'll disappoint you both again. Yeah, maybe. Logan looked at Victoria. What would you do? I'd be terrified, but I'd probably give her one supervised visit. See how it goes. Ava's smart enough to tell us if something feels wrong. Logan thought about it for the entire drive home. When they picked up Ava from Emma's house, he sat his daughter down for a serious conversation. Ava, remember Aunt Caroline, your mom's sister? Ava's expression became guarded. The lady who tried to take me away? Yeah, she wants to visit with you. Spend some time together with me there, supervising, but only if you want to. If you say no, that's completely okay. Will she try to take me again? No. She can't do that anymore. This would just be a visit. A chance for her to be part of your life if you want that. Ava thought about it seriously, her face scrunched up in concentration. Do you want me to see her? I want whatever makes you happy and safe. This is your choice, sweetheart. What about Victoria? Does she think I should? Victoria, who'd been standing in the doorway trying to give them space, came over and sat down. I think your Aunt Caroline made mistakes because she was hurting, and I think she's trying to do better. But Ava, you don't owe her anything. If you're not comfortable, that's okay. Ava was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, Can we try once? And if I don't like it, I don't have to do it again? Absolutely, Logan confirmed. One visit, and if it doesn't feel right, we stop. 2 weeks later, they met Caroline at a park. Neutral territory, with Logan present the entire time. Caroline looked different than she had at the custody hearing, softer somehow, less angry. Hi, Ava, Caroline said carefully. Thank you for agreeing to see me. Ava stayed close to Logan, studying her aunt with cautious eyes. Hi. I wanted to apologize for scaring you at your school, for trying to take you away from your dad. I was very wrong, and I'm sorry. Why did you do it? Ava asked with childhood directness. Caroline's eyes filled with tears. Because I missed your mom so much that I wasn't thinking clearly. I thought taking care of you would make me feel close to her again. But that was selfish. Your dad loves you very much. You belong with him. I know, Ava said simply. They spent an hour at the park. Caroline pushed Ava on the swings, asked about school, showed genuine interest in Ava's life without trying to force intimacy. By the end, Ava had relaxed enough to tell her aunt about her upcoming role in the school play. Can I come? Caroline asked tentatively. To the play. If your dad says it's okay? Ava looked at Logan. He nodded. Sure, you can come. After Caroline left, Logan asked Ava how she felt about the visit. It was okay, Ava said. She seems less scary now. Still kind of sad, though. She's working on that. The sadness. Good. Because being sad all the time is really hard. Ava grabbed his hand. I'm glad you're not sad anymore, Daddy. Logan's throat tightened. Me too, kiddo. Me too, The months that followed brought more changes, all of them good. Victoria got pregnant in early winter, and Ava was ecstatic about becoming a big sister. Caroline attended Ava's school play and maintained regular monthly visits that gradually became less awkward and more genuine. Sinclair Enterprises continued thriving under Victoria's leadership. The investment in Marcus Meridian's sustainable tech venture paid off spectacularly, validating Victoria's belief that ethical business could be profitable. She was featured in several business magazines as an example of the new generation of CEOs who prioritized people over pure profit. Logan was promoted to VP of Strategic Development, a role that gave him more influence and better pay while maintaining the work-life balance he'd fought so hard to achieve. He was good at his job, respected by colleagues, and actually enjoyed going to work, something that had seemed impossible 2 years ago. But the biggest change came in late spring. When Victoria went into labor 3 weeks early, Logan had been prepared for chaos, had read all the books, attended all the classes, mentally rehearsed the drive to the hospital 100 times. But when Victoria's water broke at 2 a.m., he still panicked. Okay, it's happening, he said, running around their bedroom grabbing things randomly. Hospital bag, keys, phone, where's the... Logan. Victoria's voice was calm despite the contraction she was clearly having. We practiced this. The bag is by the door. The car seat is already installed. Ava knows to go to Patricia's house if we leave before morning. We're ready. Right, yes. Ready. Logan took a deep breath. How are you so calm? Because I have you, and we're doing this together. Another contraction hit, and Victoria gripped his hand hard enough to hurt. Okay, maybe less talking and more driving. They made it to the hospital with plenty of time. Logan called Patricia to get Ava, while Victoria was being examined. The labor lasted 8 hours, long enough for Logan to worry, short enough that the doctor said it was textbook. And then their son was born. 7 pounds, 3 ounces, with Victoria's dark hair and what the nurses swore were Logan's eyes. They named him Daniel James Hayes, Daniel after Victoria's father, James after Logan's. Logan held his son for the first time and felt his entire world shift. He'd been through this before with Ava, but it was different now. He was different, present in a way he hadn't been able to be the first time. He's perfect, Logan whispered. He's wrinkly and screaming, Victoria said from the hospital bed, but she was smiling. But yes, perfect. Ava arrived an hour later with Patricia, bursting into the hospital room with barely contained excitement. Is he here? Can I see him? Logan carefully showed her the baby. Ava stared at her new brother with wide eyes, reaching out tentatively to touch his tiny hand. He's so small, she breathed. Hi, baby Daniel. I'm your big sister Ava. I'm going to teach you everything. Watching Ava meet her brother, Logan felt something slot into place. His family, the one he'd thought was destroyed when Rebecca died, hadn't been destroyed at all. It had just changed shape, transformed into something different but equally precious. Victoria caught his eye and smiled. She looked exhausted and radiant and absolutely beautiful, despite having just given birth. We did it, she said softly. Yeah, we really did. They brought Daniel home 2 days later. The brownstone that had felt spacious suddenly felt full of baby cries and diaper changes, and Ava's constant questions about what the baby was doing and when could she hold him again. Caroline visited and brought gifts, clearly moved by being included in this moment. Victoria's mother instincts surprised everyone, including herself. She was gentle and patient, and only panicked slightly when Daniel wouldn't stop crying at 3 a.m. I don't know what he wants, Victoria said, rocking him frantically. I fed him, changed him, checked his temperature. He's just crying because babies cry, Logan said, taking Daniel and walking him around the room. Sometimes they're not unhappy, they're just loud. It's their whole personality at this age. How did you survive this with Ava? Barely, and with a lot more panic. Logan looked at his son, already feeling that fierce protective love. But this time I have you. We're a team. A very tired team. The best kind. The first few months with a newborn were brutal. Sleep deprivation, constant feeding schedules, the challenge of balancing Ava's needs with Daniel's demands. Victoria struggled with the loss of control, with not being able to strategize or plan her way through new parenthood. I can't make him stop crying by giving a PowerPoint presentation, she said one particularly rough night. I can run a billion-dollar company, but I can't make a 7-pound human sleep. Welcome to parenthood, Logan said, taking Daniel so Victoria could rest. Where all your competence means nothing, and you're just guessing constantly. I hate guessing. I know, but you're doing great anyway. And she was. Victoria threw herself into motherhood with the same determination she'd brought to business, researching sleep training and developmental milestones and baby nutrition with scholarly intensity. But she'd also learned to accept imperfection, to laugh at mistakes instead of beating herself up over them. Ava thrived as a big sister, helping with feedings and diaper changes and singing to Daniel when he cried. She took her role seriously, already planning everything she'd teach him when he was older. When Daniel's 5, I'll be 12, she announced one day. I can teach him how to ride a bike and how to do homework and how to not be scared of the dark. That sounds like an excellent plan, Logan said. And when he's 10, I'll be 17. That's old enough to drive him places if you guys are busy. Let's not rush that far ahead, Victoria interjected. looking slightly panicked at the idea of teenage Ava driving infant Daniel anywhere. 6 months after Daniel was born, Logan woke up one morning and realized something profound. He was happy. Not content or managing or surviving, actually genuinely happy. He had a job he enjoyed that didn't consume his life. He had a daughter who was thriving emotionally and academically. He had a wife who challenged him and supported him and made him laugh. He had a son who was healthy and growing stronger every day. He had a home filled with love and chaos and all the messy reality of family life. It wasn't the life he had planned. When Rebecca was alive, they'd imagined something different, smaller, simpler, more conventional. But this life, the one he'd built from the wreckage of loss and near death and unexpected love, this life was good. On Daniel's first birthday, they threw a party at the brownstone. Patricia Chen came with her family. Caroline attended, now part of their extended support system. Marcus Meridian brought an absurdly expensive gift that made Victoria laugh and Logan roll his eyes. Ava had insisted on making the birthday cake herself, a lopsided creation with too much frosting and decorations that defied gravity. It was objectively terrible and absolutely perfect. To Daniel, Victoria said, raising a glass while their son smashed cake into his face with gleeful enthusiasm. And to this beautiful, chaotic family we've somehow managed to build. To surviving the first year, Logan added, and to many more. They clinked glasses while Daniel continued destroying his cake, and Ava took approximately 1,000 photos on the tablet they'd reluctantly given her. Logan looked around the room at these people who'd become his family, some by blood, some by choice, all of them essential. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Logan almost ignored it, but curiosity made him check. It was from Richard Walters. Saw the company numbers. You and Victoria have built something impressive. I was wrong about a lot of things. Congratulations on everything. Logan showed Victoria the message. She read it and smiled slightly. Think he means it? Logan asked. Probably. People can change when they hit rock bottom hard enough. Victoria looked at Daniel. Victoria. At Ava laughing with Patricia's kids at the home they'd created together. We're proof of that. Look how much we've both changed. She was right. Logan was almost unrecognizable from the exhausted, isolated man who'd collapsed in an elevator 18 months ago. Victoria was worlds away from the cold CEO who'd measured human value in productivity metrics. They'd both been broken. Both been wrong about important things. Both been given second chances they hadn't necessarily deserved. And they'd taken those chances and built something worth protecting. Later that night, after all the guests had left and both kids were asleep, Logan and Victoria stood in Daniel's nursery watching their son sleep. The same thing they did most nights, still amazed that they'd created this tiny human. Do you ever think about that night? Victoria asked quietly. The elevator? Sometimes. Why? Because it was the worst thing that ever happened to you. And also maybe the best thing. If you hadn't collapsed, if I hadn't seen what my company was doing to you, none of this would exist. Logan thought about that. I don't think the collapse was the best thing. I think what came after was the best thing. The choice you made to change. The choice I made to forgive you. The choice we both made to try. So it's the choices that matter, not the circumstances? Yeah, life gives you situations, some good, some terrible, but you choose what to do with them. You chose to become someone better instead of doubling down on who you were. I chose to risk loving again instead of staying locked in grief. Those choices made all the difference. Victoria leaned against him, and they stood together in the soft glow of the nightlight. I'm glad we chose each other. Me too. Eat this. They went to bed that night wrapped up in each other, two people who'd learned the hard way that happiness wasn't something you achieved or earned. It was something you built daily through small choices, choosing kindness over cruelty, connection over isolation, vulnerability over self-protection. It wasn't dramatic, it wasn't smooth, but it was real. And real, Logan had learned, was always better than perfect. The years that followed brought more challenges, more changes, more of the complicated reality of building a life with other people. Ava hit her teenage years with all the accompanying drama. Daniel became a toddler with opinions about everything. Victoria's company faced new competitors and market shifts that required constant adaptation. Logan dealt with aging concerns and health maintenance, and the reality that surviving one cardiac crisis didn't make you invincible. But through all of it, they had each other. That foundation, built from loss and redemption and the stubborn refusal to give up, carried them through whatever came next. On their 5th wedding anniversary, Victoria gave Logan a gift, a framed photo of the three of them from that first museum trip before they were a family, when they were just beginning to hope they could be. "To remind you where we started," Victoria said, "and how far we've come." Logan looked at the photo, Victoria crouched down beside 6-year-old Ava, both of them laughing at something he'd said just outside the frame. They looked happy, but uncertain, like people testing out a dream they were afraid to believe in. "We've come so far," Logan agreed, pulling her close. "And we're not done yet." Boss. Because that was the thing about second chances, they didn't end. They kept unfolding, day after day, choice after choice, building something sustainable from the wreckage of what came before. Logan Hayes had learned that lesson the hardest way possible. Flat on his back in an elevator, his heart giving out, his daughter screaming for help, his future uncertain. But he'd survived. They'd all survived. And more than that, they'd built a life worth surviving for. That was the real triumph. Not the happy ending, because life didn't have endings, just continuous beginnings. But the choice to keep building, keep loving, keep trying even when it was hard. The choice to believe that broken things could be repaired. The choice to trust that darkness could give way to light. The choice to accept that sometimes the worst moments of your life contain the seeds of the best things that would ever happen to you. Logan hadn't asked for any of this, hadn't wanted to lose Rebecca or nearly die, or fall for his boss or rebuild his entire existence from scratch. But standing in his home on his anniversary, his daughter doing homework at the kitchen table, and his son playing with blocks in the living room, and his wife in his arms, Logan understood something important. You didn't get to choose what life gave you. You only got to choose what you did with it. And if you chose bravely, chose love over fear, hope over cynicism, forgiveness over resentment, you might just end up with something worth all the pain it took to build it. Logan Hayes had chosen bravely. So had Victoria Sinclair. So had Ava, in her own childish but profound way. And together, they'd created something that looked a lot like happiness. Not perfect happiness. Not smooth or simple or without complications, but real happiness. Messy and challenging and absolutely worth fighting for. And that, Logan thought as he held his wife while their children played nearby and the evening sun filtered through the windows of their home. That was more than enough. It was everything.